Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Carter, jump stop, strip, stolen, away, ahead of the pack, McCollum, breakaway, he dunks it. Came back, I didn't know he could do that.
What do you mean you didn't know
he hadn't done it all year. 59-45.
2 seconds left. Kendeigh alone lets the three go. It's so good. And you can put Spurs on this one. South Carolina takes down number 5 Tennessee, handing the Vols their first home loss of the season. You got to rank them now, people. 63-59, your final score.
Looking for Tennyson. Back out it comes to Trey. Right-hand side to go Peavy again. 5 on the shot clock. Back it goes Nelson. 3 on the shot clock. Deep 3. Jameer Nelson over Chance McMillan. Seniors in the house, and he's going to be loving this performance by Jameer here tonight.
Lobbed up to Bacon. Hands off Davis down the left side. Takes a bump. Banks it up. No good. Tapped off the glass. Doesn't fall. Jackets win. Jackets win. Jackets win. Paint this town gold tonight. Final score. Tech 74. North Carolina 73. McCamish Magic once again.
That didn't hit nearly as hard as I thought it was going to.
Because it was a little like,
yeah,
and then the beat drop.
I was waiting for the beat drop. We didn't really get it. Good morning here on a Wednesday on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me. What's going on, man?
You know what they say, C for effort.
Yeah, that's about what effort gets you is in life is about a C. Maybe a C- there on that effort by me. That's okay.
No, I'm good though, man. Thanks for asking.
That's good. I will say, RJ Davis, I thought got fouled on that last shot there.
Oh, did he? Did he get fouled?
A little bit of, that's all right though.
Jackets win.
That's right.
I thought Shane was playing maybe a Columbus Blue Jackets highlight there for a hot sec, and then they said UNC, and I'm like, well, maybe they would beat UNC. They wouldn't beat a lot of other teams.
This is Hurrdat Sports Radio on a Wednesday. Good show for you here today. We've got a special guest at 8:00. Adnan Virk is joining us. He's a national sports media personality. Does a bunch of podcasts. We brought him on to talk about the Super Bowl, but I'm gonna see if we can stretch him in a couple different directions too, because he's a huge Major League Baseball guy. He's on Major League Baseball Network. He's on the NHL Network.
Yep.
And maybe my favorite thing that he does is the Cinephile Pod. He's a big movie guy like I am, and so we're getting kind of to Oscar time. He's won an Emmy for kind of an Oscars like TV thing that he did for an all access deal. So I'm going to see if maybe we can get a little bit.
We'll branch out with him. He's a great guy.
A few different directions with Adnan there. We really appreciate him joining us at 8:00. The rest of our guests, we've got our every other week Wednesday regular Andy Kendeigh from KETV at 9. Brian Christopherson has so generously moved to 9:00 for us this morning so we could get Adnan in. Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. And then our very own Anna Bellinghausen joins us from Hurrdat Sports at 9:30. And, of course, Anna's here. I'm here.
We play trivia.
We've got to get a little trivia in to wrap up the show.
You weren't here last week, and
well.
I beat Shane. I don't think I ever told you that. So Shane and I went head-to-head on Omaha trivia.
Oh.
So Anna just drafted up questions. Some were sports-related, maybe one.
So I think I went back and listened to it because I was curious about how trivia went. And
yeah, and I won.
I remember that. That's
ask Shane how long he's lived here.
It's embarrassing. I mean, I heard it was like 23 years. It's embarrassing for Shane to have lost Omaha trivia.
I only missed one question.
You've lived here almost longer than Andrew's been alive.
Thanks, man.
I mean, that's embarrassing for both of you a little bit. But no, I went back and heard trivia. So Anna and I will go back and do some trivia.
Won't be Omaha today.
9:45. I'm actually super excited. Every year, because me and my brother are both big trivia nerds.
It's exciting.
Every year, his kids' school, they go to Catholic school, they do this trivia fundraiser thing. And so him and I are on like a team every year.
Trivia night.
And we do pretty well. I mean, we do pretty solid. So that's Friday. I'm excited.
That's like a humble brag. You're like a golfer. So like,
I'm like a 4 handicap.
if I walked up to Scotty Scheffler, who's the #1 golfer in the world today, and I'm like, Scotty, you are so good at golf. And he's like, I'm okay. Like that's you with trivia. I'm okay. Yeah, okay, guy. Yeah, we know you're taking home Catholic trophies here.
Well, the funny thing is, like, at a fundraiser trivia night, you always spend more money than you ever bring home anyway.
I mean, and then there's a silent auction.
Oh yeah, there's a million things.
There's a lot of drinking being done at Catholic trivia nights in particular.
Yes, there is. I was expecting, because I've been to fish fries and stuff like that prior. We started doing this a few years ago.
A lot of drinking at those.
Yeah, right. But I was like, oh, they'll probably have beer and whatever. No, there's like hard liquor. There's a bar cart. Like they go hardcore. It is.
Yeah, my spot
super fun.
My spot back home. Which I'm gonna switch my views here real fast on StreamYard. I don't know why it was coming through my laptop.
While you do that, I've got some audio from you winning last week.
My spot at home, I remember growing up and only seeing beer at the fish fry. I don't know if they do hard alcohol now.
Yeah,
but they had like the biggest spread of any fish fry in St. Louis. I mean, there were like 2 sides of buffet style. Like you just kind of walked up, and now, granted, if you knew the guy, they would load up your plate. Like you pay for, I don't know if it's like 2 pieces of cod, French fries,
whatever it is.
Yeah, like no, if you knew Mr. Bruno, he would give you
hooks you up
4 pieces of cod, 8 dinner rolls, maybe
Okay.
4 scoops of mac and cheese, and all of a sudden you have 3 styrofoam containers that you're carrying past the people you just paid.
You're like,
and
bye, guys.
You're like, yeah, guys, I paid $8.99.
No, we're about to get to fish fry season though pretty soon here. Was it? I think Ash Wednesday's next week, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. I think we're getting pretty close to Ash Wednesday. I'm not Catholic, so I don't even know. But we've got
it's coming up mid-February.
Yeah, we've got a couple more weeks. We've got a really interesting development here that happened last night. So we had a lot of college basketball going on last night. We talked about UNC getting knocked off by Georgia Tech. But the thing that caught my eye the most yesterday was in the NFL. And no, it's not Taylor Swift, although we might get to that later. Detroit offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, who was kind of assumed to either take the Commander's job, which is where he was kind of tied to the most. The Seahawks are still also looking for their new head coach, although it seems like maybe they're zeroing in on Mike McDonald, defensive coordinator at Baltimore. That kind of seems where they're going. But like I said, it seemed like the Commanders were going with Ben Johnson. And kind of out of nowhere, it seemed like Ben Johnson comes out and says, no, I'm actually going to stay here in Detroit. This is a guy that if he really wanted to, could have had a head coaching job.
He had his choice.
Yeah, this cycle, like he could have had it done. And he said, nope, staying in Detroit, going to run it back. And it kind of got the wheels turning a little bit in my head here. First of all, I think it takes a lot of conviction if you don't like the head coaching situation you're presented with to turn it down, because we see so many times, a lot in college, sometimes in the NFL as well, where guys are so desperate for that opportunity. And I get it, right? Like I get it, where those things don't come along super often.
It's now or never.
You don't always know if that opportunity is going to come around again, right? And so you jump on the first chance you have rather than making sure it's the best opportunity for you. And so first, I have to give a ton of credit to Ben Johnson for having sort of that fortitude to look through that. Because, I mean, you look at the Commanders situation, it's not, now that Snyder's gone, it's not nearly as bad of a job. But unless you're
still a bad job.
Yeah, it's not a good job. I mean, unless you're like really high on the roster, which I don't know.
Which no one is. I mean, they traded away their defense.
Yeah, they did a little fire sale midseason.
Offensively,
don't really have a quarterback.
Been,
unless you're like really high on Howell, which I'm not. I don't know that. I mean, he might be fine, but I don't think he's one of those guys you look at and say,
you don't
that's a
your
dude.
Life and say, yeah, I'm doing this because that guy's fine.
Yeah, you don't. He's not a guy like if CJ Stroud was on the Commanders, you're like, yeah, I'm going to take a chance on CJ Stroud. If some other young guy, I don't even know who else young guy in the league right now you'd maybe do that for in terms of guys that aren't, like obviously you do it for like a Patrick Mahomes, but there's not a ton of young quarterbacks in the league that you're like, yeah, I'm gonna uproot everything for that guy.
Well, and he's seen what's happened with that job or with jobs at least close by to that job over the past few seasons, and the turnover rate there. What just happened? You picked up.
I picked up my energy drink. I think my little hand wrap here caught on the desk and flung a portion of the desk at me.
The cover,
where
you hide your
cord cover,
just flew up and smacked Ravi in the beard. Anyway,
that was weird. That was bizarre.
And it seemed a little bizarre too that Ben Johnson would turn down a head coaching job, or just anybody would turn down a head coaching job after the seasons he's had. But you also have to look at the position he's in right now. That offense.
Yeah, you have to look at the position he's going back to.
Right. As it's put together is like perfect. They have their quarterback. They have two really good running backs.
They have tight end.
One of the best young tight ends in the game, if not the best young tight end in the game.
I think that's fair.
They have one of the best wide receivers in the game.
St. Brown.
And then think about what the Lions could do if they wanted to upgrade at one of those other two positions. Say Jamison Williams didn't provide enough, or Josh Reynolds because he dropped too many balls. They're like, I don't really want to do this anymore with these guys. I doubt they're saying that, but these guys are. You can have a pretty good offense with this team, and you can literally run it back, as you said. But if you go over to the Commanders, the grass isn't always greener. Even though you have the head coach, you have the head coaching title. You have the prowess. You're the name. You're the brand. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be a struggle. Why would you leave a perfect job just to go to another job that's worse?
Yeah.
And how much more money are you actually making by making that transition? Like, you're making a good chunk of money. So I think that's where that conviction comes in that you're talking about, of turning down a head coaching opportunity. But I don't think that he's making so little right now to where that actually bothers him.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a financial component to it, but there's also the component of this is probably the thing that he's dreamed about achieving for most of his life, and certainly most of his adult life.
One other thing.
Yeah.
If you're a quarterback, you're in the transfer portal, and Troy of all schools is going to offer you $6 million to play for them. Just say that's what it is.
Sure.
But right now you are at Ohio State, a contender, and you're making $2 million or $3 million. Maybe that's too big of a spread. Maybe it's the difference between 500,000 and $1 million. So say you're making $5 million at Ohio State. Why would you leave a situation where you're in line to win a title to go to a situation where you wouldn't win a title?
So the difference there is, though, you're comparing being a starting quarterback versus being an offensive coordinator, being a head coach. Like, that's where the big difference is in that scenario, because most of these guys, not everyone, there are some guys that are totally okay with being just a coordinator. Like, they like the football part of it, because we've heard Matt Rhule say this
before. But either way, you're a coach.
Right, but there's a big difference between being a coordinator and a head coach.
But I'm talking about, like, the stage of where your team would be at.
Right.
And
the team scenario,
on the ladder, you wouldn't go for more money if you ultimately wanted to win a Super Bowl.
No, but it'd be more like
if Ben Johnson wants to win a Super Bowl, you're not going to do that in Washington.
No, probably not. But it's more like being, hey, you can go to a place where, or you can stay in a place where maybe you're the backup quarterback and you're making good money, versus going to a place where you're the starting quarterback. You're not going to win a championship. You make better money, but maybe you can turn around a program. Like, that's more of a similarity here, because offensive coordinator to head coach is, I mean, a very
and I get
job.
that. And I think you're looking too far into the technicality of that point, where it's more the situation that I'm describing here. You wouldn't leave a spot for more money if you ultimately wanted to win a Super Bowl.
No, but you would leave a spot for a better opportunity in terms of what your ultimate
if you had the
was.
Falcons job, it would have been completely different, because the Falcons are a better opportunity. You have a better offense and you're a quarterback away. Like, that's how people look at that at that program. I said the same thing at that organization.
Yeah,
because of what you know about the NFC South, it's not great, and so you could compete if you had a a serviceable quarterback that wasn't named Desmond Ridder or Taylor Heineke or whoever.
Right.
Like defensively, I don't know if they're completely there either, and you could use some pieces, but that offense is well put together with Bijan, Kyle Pitts, and Drake London. You can make that work.
Yeah, if you find a quarterback.
What can you make work in Washington? Like, it's not the same job. So that's why the Falcons job would appeal so much more, because you can compete for a playoff spot. You can compete for a potential Super Bowl run in your first, say, 3 years there if you get the right guy in, versus if you go to Washington and you will probably just fizzle out because you have so much, you have to pick up so many pieces that he doesn't have enough hands to do that.
I think you might be underestimating the number of guys, and this is just a guess on my part, that would rather have a chance to run their own team as a head coach as opposed to winning a Super Bowl as an assistant. I think in coaches' minds, there's a huge difference there.
And I'm not saying that there isn't, because ultimately you strive for that moment. Your whole life you wanted to be a head coach for an NFL team. Like if you coach football and you want to coach at the NFL level, of course you want to get to be the head coach. But situationally, I think it takes a lot of grapes to say, no, I'm not going to do that, because I'm not going to put myself in a bad spot, because I want to win with this team first, because this team is set up better.
Yeah, I do think it does take a lot of conviction to make that decision. The other thing that I thought was interesting about his decision was the kind of the similarities I thought it brought up with Nebraska's current situation, which sounds weird. But the moment you see somebody stay in a situation that you expected them to leave, it kind of brought back to me this incredible player retention that Nebraska's had with Matt Rhule this past offseason, or the fact that it seemed like Tony White had other opportunities in the offseason, whether it be the USC defensive coordinator job, whether it have briefly been the San Diego State head coaching job, that you saw guys want to stay loyal to the place they were at. And so that made me look at Dan Campbell in a way that, he's been really interesting to me, because I think on the surface, him and Matt Rhule look really different. I think he is you get much more of his former player that comes out in Dan Campbell, I think, because he was obviously a more prominent player than Matt Rhule was. Matt Rhule was a walk-on at Penn State, and yes, he played high-level college football, but, Dan Campbell was in the NFL, like he had a professional football career, and you get a lot of that, like former NFL player, the bite the kneecaps and all that kind of tough guy stuff with Dan Campbell. And for me, it was really hard to see past that at first, because I was like, man, this guy's nuts. Right.
Well, and his coaching style reflects that.
Yeah. And his coaching is like super intense. Like, I think
aggressive play calling.
Yeah. Super aggressive. I look at Matt Rhule as super passionate. I don't necessarily look at him as aggressive in terms of his personality. Right. I look at his personality as like very caring, very connecting, very relationship oriented. A lot of times those aggressive, tough guys, you don't get that same level of connection with. And that's on the surface what you see with Dan Campbell. But then you look at the turnaround that you've seen in Detroit. You look at a guy like Ben Johnson, who had head coaching opportunities, come back to Detroit for another year rather than pursuing those head coaching opportunities. You see the way the players talk about Dan Campbell. And then kind of the final piece of this for me that started gelling this all together was what he said after the NFC Championship game loss, where he goes, hey, there's no guarantee you're going to be back here, right? Yes, if we do all the things we're supposed to do and we stay hungry and we don't take it for granted, then yeah, there's a good chance we'll be back here. But if you aren't just as hungry tomorrow as you were yesterday, then you're not going to end up back here. And that sounded like a very Coach Rhule thing to say, in terms of, hey, just because you came to the University of Nebraska, you don't deserve to win games. You have to earn the right to win games, right? It was very similar kind of in the things that they were talking about. And that kind of made it click for me a little bit, where I was like, oh, these guys might actually be really similar, even though the gift wrapping looks a lot different, right? One of them is kind of you take it to the department store and they do the pretty gift wrapping for you. Like that's Matt Rhule. The other one is me gift wrapping something. It's in like newspaper and like a roll of masking tape and duct tape. And you're like, here you go.
It's a pretty similar gift.
Like, yeah, it might be the same gift.
Different.
Might be the exact same gift, right? But the packaging is very different.
Yeah. The other point to that too, outside of the no guarantees and kind of the language and how we hear one person speak and how we can align it with the other. The loyalty to stay is big, because a point that we were kind of getting on with Ben Johnson. I'm going to bring up Glenn Thomas.
I was going to say, I had a little Glenn Thomas on the brain.
So hang with me here. With Ben Johnson staying in Detroit, it's a lot like that. The loyalty that I heard from Glenn Thomas on the Husker Radio Network last night of explaining the relationships and the full circle moments about coming back to the staff in Lincoln, how he walks in and he's like, man, this is like my family. Like, I coached Garrett McGuire. I worked with this person, and, now we're kind of all back in the same room and the band is back together. And it feels good to be with your people. And so there's a loyal to you thing and a loyal to me. And that's kind of the same thing we saw with Coach White and Coach Rhule this past offseason, when Coach White could have gone and had almost any job opportunity he wanted, especially as a DC.
Yeah,
but
as a DC, for sure.
As a head coach, he could have gone to a smaller level and just said, like, I'm going to give it a go here if people give me a shot. But no, he decides to stay in Lincoln. Why? Because you look at what's in front of you and you're like, I can make this even more successful than it was last season. And that's a lot what Ben Johnson is probably saying to himself right now. I can make this a lot more successful, if not just as successful as it was last season. So loyalty was a huge thing. And then you mentioned passion, just passion for the game and passion for the players. That's both of those guys. That's Dan Campbell. That's Matt Rhule. They may show it in a different way because Coach Rhule has to be, he may have to coddle more than, an NFL head coach because of the age gap. But
he wouldn't like that word, though.
No, he
caring,
wouldn't.
not coddling.
Yeah.
That's the coach rule.
I know, but like
you handled college kids differently.
Yeah,
than
you just
NFL
have
players.
to have to treat 18 to 22-year-olds different than you have to treat
part of the reason
7-year-olds.
Which is part of the reason I was hesitant on Dan Campbell as an NFL head coach. I thought it would work in college for if he had flamed out in the NFL. I actually thought his personality would work better in college because of that. They kind of tend to respond better to that. But to his credit, he was able to connect with them in a way that resonated with older players as well, which I think is really challenging.
Well, and another thing here is I'm just kind of thinking about the future of Ben Johnson. Every year new jobs pop up all the time. So because of how far the Lions went this season, what jobs were available? It was the Seahawks, and it was the Commanders.
Their success almost worked against him in terms of available
What's
jobs.
going to be available next season? If things turn out the way they did this season, I mean, who knows if Eberflus will have a job in Chicago?
Fair.
Big market, young quarterback,
lots of picks,
a lot of draft capital. I still think Mike McCarthy needs to be out of a job.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he just instantly goes to Dallas, but the job market could be a little better next season.
Philly,
this season.
Buffalo, a couple of places that were kind of borderline for guys that.
And look at that. TK said that earlier.
That underwhelmed as well. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming next.
We will be back.
We didn't come in and have to nobody. We weren't doing backflips like, all right, we got this thing on. They know better. We all know better. We talked about it. We knew they were going to make a run in the second half. honestly, right now, I can't put my finger on that. That's not like us. We had plays to be made that we just didn't make. We normally do. And so fourth quarter, you feel like we're going to get it back, and we just couldn't quite get over the hump. And that hasn't been us all year, and it showed up today, the worst time. I don't regret those decisions. It's hard. It's hard because we didn't come through. We wasn't able to work out. I don't. And I understand the scoop round, but it's probably good, man.
We will be back.
Jackets win!
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers here with me on a Wednesday.
Update.
I set up the show in segment 1 today. I nailed it. We don't have to do it.
We set it up in like the first 4 minutes.
Knocked it out of the park quick. Just a reminder, coming up at 8 o'clock, we've got Adnan Virk of MLB Network, NHL Network, and the Cinephile podcast. But ironically, I think we're going to talk a little football with him because he can do just about anything. Super versatile guy. excited to talk to Adnan here in a little bit. So random, we were talking about Dan Campbell and kind of some of the similarities to him and Matt Rhule. And we can circle back to that if we want to at some point. But so as I'm prepping the show last night, my wife is watching the show Drunk History.
What is that?
Have you not heard of that?
No.
So I don't know if it's still on, but it's basically.
I read that on the rundown, and I guess
it's on Hulu, isn't it?
I think it's on Hulu now, but I think it originally was running on Comedy Central. And basically, you've got these celebrities. Most of them are kind of like TV actors, stuff like that.
Okay.
Like some of them are more famous than others, but it's usually people you recognize, but aren't. They don't have usually like Brad Pitt and George Clooney on there. I was watching Ocean's 13 the other day, so it's on the brain. But you've got people. I love that franchise, but you've got people you recognize, and so basically they tell these kind of these sort of lesser known historical events, but they get totally wasted first. And so it's really, really funny.
Okay.
And it's mostly accurate. Like sometimes it gets a little squirrely because they're drunk, obviously. But it's really
sounds cool. It sounds like me when I described the Danbury Trashers yesterday.
Which I did watch that yesterday.
Did you?
Phenomenal.
Dude, it's so good.
It was incredible. I can't believe they were actually good. That's the part that you left out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
they were really good.
They finished second in their league in the cup or whatever. Incredible. Would highly recommend Crime and Penalties on Netflix Untold. But anyway, so I'm watching this last night, and basically, so they've got the drunk actor narrating a story, and then they have it sort of very humorously played out by other actors, kind of the historical scene, and the drunk person is narrating it the whole time. So I'm watching this, and it's really funny, and I'm prepping the show, and I'm thinking to myself, what would be the funniest version of that in the sports world? Like a drunk commentator would be kind of funny.
Well, that was Cardinals broadcaster Mike Shannon forever.
True. I do feel like we get some of that in baseball with some of those guys.
In the eighth inning, all of a sudden, Mike Shannon doesn't know how to say his S's.
That
was probably the third inning where you heard that call, Shane.
I'm not 100% sure Harry Carey was always 100% sober there.
He fouled it back to the screen. Morris.
By the time we got to Take Me Out to the ball game, I don't know that Harry Carey was passing a breathalyzer. But so commentating, we maybe have seen it a little bit. It'd be a little funnier in like basketball because it's a lot more fast paced to see a guy try and keep up with a basketball game, or hockey. Hockey would be a really good one.
At least there's timeouts in basketball or TV timeouts and stoppages, right?
Yeah.
These guys change on the fly.
They just keep going. So that would be a little bit funny. I thought it would be funny if a coach, because we've sort of off air a lot been talking about the Pro Bowl. There's some stuff going on with the NBA All-Star game, and we'll get to that either later today or later in the week. But if the Pro Bowl coaches had to take like a shot every quarter or something like that, so they were a little bit. I know they're doing it. I know they're doing it differently this year with like the flag football and everything.
Yeah, this year they're just drinking fifths.
Yeah, I think they were drinking fifths when they were trying to figure out what to do this year. But I will say I did play. Not an actual game. I was just playing with my friends. But I did play a basketball game, sort of a little bit drunk once, and it was really difficult.
Wait a second. Yesterday we talked about, would you rather be hungover?
Yes.
Or would you rather be, on psychedelics?
Yeah.
So since you played the game drunk,
yeah, different than
hungover. How much better of a feeling was that?
Oh, it was terrible because I was like, I'm so bad right now, and like I wasn't. Listen, I played the lowest form of college basketball known to mankind, but it.
Wait, you were drunk when you played your college game?
No. That
would have been incredible.
No, this was a pickup game just with a bunch of my college friends, but this was like in a park. I think we were in Council Bluffs for some reason. I think because one of my friends lives there. But I had been out with friends, or I'd been like at like a outdoor cookout type thing with some friends, and so I had a few beers, and then these other friends were like, "Hey, our friends in town. Do you want to come play pickup basketball with us?" And I was like, I really wanted to see those guys, but I was like, hey, I can't drive right now. Like I've been drinking, and they're like, oh, we'll come pick you up. And I was like, well, I don't really have an excuse now. So, okay. And so we go pick up basketball, and I'm, a little buzzed, whatever. I am not a great ball handler anyway. I got to say dribbling was like the most difficult thing in the world while at like a few beers in. I will say though, I think I threw the best pass of my life and it was kind of
like
one of those
full court baseball pass.
So I was just inside half court, and there was a guy that he was like the 6'7" kid, and like he could dunk obviously. And so I kind of just threw the ball like up towards the rim, and I didn't even think, I was like, I'm just going to kind of put it up there, and he ended up alley-ooping it. It was probably the best pass I've ever thrown in my life.
And especially when you're drunk, it seems even cooler.
Yes, it probably was not that cool, but in my head I was like, am I Jason Kidd? But especially because I don't pass the ball that much in general when I'm sober. It's like, this ball's going up. But so I'm thinking, I was trying to think, first of all, our job would be basically impossible to do.
Drunk?
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't.
Well, to be factual, maybe, but since we can be super opinionated in this job,
sure,
I think actually being drunk would be okay.
Yeah, I mean,
you just have to be careful about, like, Shane has to be on the dump button nonstop.
But yeah, I was just thinking, I don't know what the sports equivalent of drunk history is. I do
slow pitch softball.
I think you might be right. I think we found the answer here. It might be slow pitch softball. I did think it would be kind of fun to like get a bunch of buddies together and basically do sports drunk history where you rewatch a pivotal game and you're like kind of doing like the tailgate thing the whole time, but you're either doing like a live podcast or like a live video of it. And so you are reacting in real time to this game.
Yeah, I'd be cool with that.
While drinking. I mean, maybe it's a summer idea. We'll see.
Let's do it.
We'll see what
Let's
we can
do it. Get her done.
Let's do. Yeah, we could do Hurrdat Sports Drunk History is the new plan there. But yeah, I was watching this with my wife, and I was like, this is, first of all, I don't know who came up with this idea, but it's a genius.
It's like a cool idea for a show.
Yeah,
I'll have to check it out.
You should. I think is it on Hulu, Shane? Is that what you said?
I've seen the little screenshot of it on Hulu. Yes,
it's kind of like, how Hurrdat did the Hotter Ones challenge, where you get a little bit more honest.
Okay.
As you're under physical distress from either the hot wings or the alcohol, you get a little bit more honest than you maybe would be.
So describe the premise of the show just quickly for me one more time. So say like you were telling the story about like the pyramids of Egypt. Okay.
Sure. If I'm telling you like the construction of,
so like, do you read the story ahead of time? Like,
I don't know. So I think what they do is, I think they sort of prep on what the story is and what the story they're going to tell, and then they get drunk,
and then they pound 10 beers,
and then they try and tell it from memory, I think.
Okay, that makes more sense.
That I think is, I don't know exactly the mechanics of it.
Because I'm like, is this like, Rick from Pawn Stars who acts like he knows everything, but that show is so scripted and staged?
No, so I think they like prep the story and then they try and tell it from memory after they get drunk, which is pretty funny.
I'm good with that. That's fine with me. I just kind of wanted to know the precursor to the actual show.
Yeah, that's so that I believe is how they do it, and they nail it. It's terrific. So I think we might need to do a Hurrdat Sports Drunk History.
How about we just do a Hurrdat Sports Drunk segment sometime?
Do
you think that'll pass with Bill?
Probably not.
Why not?
Well, 8:00 in the morning might be a little early for that too, but that's okay.
Not for some people.
We've got plenty of.
We'll do it tailgating before a Nebraska football game. Everybody else is drinking. Why can't we?
That's true. We could do a Nebraska pregame show. We've got plenty coming up of actual sports things. I know I got us kind of off topic there a little bit, but coming up at 8:00, we'll have Adnan Virk. Coming up at 8:30, we've got Andy Kendeigh, KETV, and coming up at 9, of course, Brian Christopherson and Anna Bellinghausen at 9:30 with trivia at 9:45. I'm getting ready. I can't wait. I'm not preparing or anything. I'm not like studying questions, but I don't even know.
I tried to go like easy, medium, hard today.
Okay. All right. I'm ready for it. Can't wait. We will continue with more of Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next year on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. On the YouTube channel, TK says, if you ever went to the bar with a bunch of law students, that's basically what drunk history is. That's pretty funny, TK. And knowing some current lawyers, that's accurate.
Or maybe some that act like lawyers. Not Thomas. I'm talking about Mike Ross. Come on, guys.
Coming up in the show, we've got Adnan Virk up at 8 o'clock. But before we get to that, I want to tell you about our friends over at the Omaha Supernovas. We're just a few days away from their second match of the season, February 3rd at CHI Health Center. That's a 6 p.m. first serve against the San Diego Mojo. You can get tickets at supernovas.com as the Supernovas look for their first win of the season. You'll have an opportunity to see some of the best volleyball talent all in one place. NCAA champions, All-Americans, Olympians, and all available right here in Omaha with your Supernovas. Join the volleyball movement sweeping across the country and see your Major League Volleyball team, the Omaha Supernovas. Go to supernovas.com. You can get tickets, season, single game, tickets available. Also, if you need schedule information, maybe you can't make it this Saturday, but you want to make it to a future game, make sure you check out the schedule to see when you can get out to a match. That's supernovas.com.
Speaking of tickets, because Drunk Monk posts on YouTube, what sporting events are we watching tonight? And that's in connection to, hey, we're going to get drunk and then try to describe the sporting event. I'm looking at the NHL slate tonight. There's 3 games.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me which game is the cheapest to go to out of these.
Jackets
win! Okay.
Okay.
So tickets as low as $21.
Okay.
Tickets as low as $18.
Okay.
And tickets as low as $22. Here are the 3 matchups.
All right.
Okay? Ottawa at Detroit.
Okay.
Los Angeles, the Kings at the Predators, Nashville Predators.
Okay.
San Jose at Anaheim.
I'm going to say your cheapest ticket is Ottawa at Detroit.
Can I tell you one?
Yep.
San Jose at Anaheim.
So, Shane, I would normally be with you because those are 2 of the worst teams in hockey.
Right.
But that actually is the highest price ticket of these 3.
Of course it
at
is.
$22.
I figured
funny.
both teams in
because
California,
they're in California.
it's a little bit more expensive.
So that's where my head went to. But if I had to choose, Shane, honestly, I would have done the same thing. You're both wrong, though.
Oh,
because Detroit's a really good team.
Right. Yeah.
But it is really good. $21. I guess so. $18 to go watch the Predators tonight. Tickets as low as $18.
There you go.
And the Kings are pretty good too.
Got to go watch the Preds. What I'm probably watching tonight, if I had to guess, is probably a little Big East basketball. I'll probably be watching Providence at number 1 UConn. That's probably where I'll be paying the most attention tonight. That would be also probably have an eye on an earlier game, Northwestern at Purdue. One of Purdue's 2 losses of the season is to Northwestern. So they've got
that game at home.
It's at Purdue. Yeah. So that's the rematch of Purdue's first loss of the season. They won't get a chance to avenge their second loss of the season against Nebraska because they only play once this year. But those are probably the 2 that I will be keeping a closest eye on this evening. I try and stay in, unless we've got a huge national matchup, I usually try and stay in the 2 conferences that our local teams play in here, Big Ten, Big East, so I can, feel confident about talking about all the teams that they play against the rest of the year. But good matchups in those Big Ten and the Big East this week, even though it's not, Northwestern isn't ranked, but that's a probable.
He's a good player.
Yeah, it's a probable tournament team against Purdue, and the fact that that's one of the 2 games that Purdue's lost this year, I think, is interesting. And then Providence is playing a little bit better. It seems like they found their stride following the Bryce Hopkins injury. They've won 3 in a row now after dropping 4 straight. So going at number 1 UConn. Also, I'm kind of just I'd like UConn to take some losses. Not a big UConn guy here. We've talked about this before. I really hate Danny Hurley. Just really hate him. Super punchable face.
Okay, Ravi.
He does.
Let's go to therapy now.
He's got it. Listen.
Let's take it back a notch. You don't want to be drunk and punching Dan Hurley.
I didn't say I'm going to punch him in the face. I'm saying his face is very punchable.
I got to tell you, man, if he was in front of you, you may punch him in the face.
Well, not right now because I got kind of this situation going on here.
Doesn't mean you can't swing with the left.
I go lefty, although I need surgery on the left one too, probably. So
well, it's a good start because then you can just put your hand right into a cast.
Just get it all fixed up. Be like, it's a little accident I had here. That's to answer Drunk Monk. That's probably what I'm planning.
He did
to
say
watch.
too that drunk in my name has nothing to do with consuming alcohol.
Mostly.
So
I don't really know what that means, but we were talking about a little bit I don't even remember how we got on this topic, but we were in the first segment we were talking about Pro Bowls and stuff a little bit. But an interesting little tidbit came out about the NBA All-Star game and All-Star weekend this year. Obviously, you got the Pro Bowl coming up this week. Andrew and I have been talking about some ways to tweak that. And this kind of goes into this idea of trying to make All-Star games or All-Star weekends more entertaining for fans, right? Because just playing the games as is has kind of lost its luster for, 20 years now. We're going on a pretty long ways of, like, the Pro Bowl hasn't been interesting for a really long time. the NBA All-Star Game. They've tried a couple things. The Elam ending was cool the first time, kind of got teams to care a little bit, but you got to be creative with what they're doing here. One of the things they're doing during All-Star Weekend, which I think is cool, is Steph Curry and Sabrina Ionescu from the WNBA are going head-to-head, got announced officially yesterday, are going head-to-head in a three-point shootout during All-Star Weekend. Steph Curry will be using the NBA ball and the NBA line. Originally, it was said that Sabrina is going to be using the NBA ball and the WNBA line. And then she's like, I'll shoot from the NBA line too, which I love. I love the confidence. So that's going to be, I think, fun. It'll be pretty much normal three-point contest rules. Beside that, you've got the money balls and then you got a money rack and whatever, and they'll go from there. I like that they're trying to be more creative about sort of bringing an appeal to All-Star weekends, All-Star games, stuff like that. I remember back in the day, they used to do in the NFL, they would do these sort of QB competition obstacle courses thing. Every once in a while, you'll see a clip of them on like TikTok or, you'll see them doing, they'll have these motorized targets that guys are throwing at. And then they do a kind of a long ball competition as well. Like, I would love to see more of that type of stuff in All-Star weekends again, because I'll be honest, that's way more interesting than usually the actual game in itself. Is there anything that you've seen or that you'd like to see that you're like, yeah, like that would maybe spice it up for me a little bit?
Yeah, there's
because the NHL does a good job.
The NHL does a really nice job of having a nice skills competition and mixing in a ton of variety, whether it's with veterans or whether it's with women in ice hockey somewhere else. I think I've seen before, like fastest skater or some sort of skills, like penalty shot competition between men and women. But I think the NHL does a really nice job of encapsulating what the skills comp should be. I don't know if I love the All-Star game in the NHL.
Yeah, none of the actual games are that good.
Right.
Yeah.
But the skills comp is where everybody tends to at least focus. But the big thing here is you have to make all this stuff a betting angle. Like if you put odds on all these different events, people will sit down and watch. Like I think the NFL Combine is the exception to that rule because there's so many players to watch and you have such a rooting interest, whether it's for a certain college player or, where your team sits in the draft and who you're looking for, that you don't really need to know like who's the fastest guy for the 40. Although I think it could help like in total watch. Like if we watch guys run the 40 and, John Ross was plus 100 and then, you kind of go down the list and I'm like, well, I may gamble with, Rome Odunze at plus 600. Let's see if he can run the fastest 40 because I watched a lot of college football and I think Rome can run, pretty fast in that short amount of time. I would have a lot of fun watching the combine versus trying to sit there and analytically try to decipher who my team should get and who they shouldn't. But in terms of something that I think should be done in baseball, especially, and baseball's great because nothing's happening that week. So people are kind of forced to watch the All-Star game.
Or at least I'll watch the home run derby.
But most people will follow it up with the All-Star game because
what else are you going to do?
It is the most similar thing to a game.
It's the closest one.
It's the closest one to the actual sport.
Yeah.
So that's why it makes a lot of sense. What they need to do is bring back wearing team jerseys.
Yes.
Don't wear the National League, American League jerseys. No, wear your team colors. That was way better. It was so much more fun to watch Albert Pujols in a Cardinal jersey than Yadier Molina in a National League jersey. So much more fun that way. But in terms of a skill comp for baseball to add to it and make it even better, I would love to see relief pitchers do a hardest throw competition.
Ooh, yeah. I would without a doubt watch that. I'd like to see position players do a hardest throw competition because someone like those outfielders have a cannon, and when you do it with the crow hop, you get some pretty crazy numbers up there. To football though, I would love if they did 40-yard dash races at the Pro Bowl weekend. So give me like a Tyreek Hill and a DK Metcalf. And then you could bet on the winner of like Tyreek Hill versus DK Metcalf.
I'm telling you, you add a betting angle in, people will play.
Makes the world go
I'm
round.
there.
People will watch.
I'm just saying, Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf, let's do it.
And then imagine like a book at the location.
Yes.
So like horse racing.
Let's do it. Dude. We've got Adnan Virk coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're also live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. We are joined now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline by Adnan Virk. He's of the Major League Baseball Network, NHL Network, and the Cinephile Pod. Adnan, how are you this morning?
Ravi, Andrew, great to be with you guys. How are things?
Hey, great, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Of course, my pleasure. Happy to talk football and whatever other sports you guys want.
Oh, yeah. We're going to go all across the map with you because we know you do everything. And, Ravi to my right, and I'll let him kick this thing off because he's a huge movie buff, too. I like movies. I don't know if I can analyze them as good as you both can, but I give it my all sometimes. Like, I'm like a lesser Rotten Tomatoes.
Listen, Rotten Tomatoes, they have the critics' reviews, they also have the audience reviews. So as long as you slot into one of those, you're good to go.
Amen.
Well, and with Oscar season coming up, I can't let you get out of here without some movie questions. But we'll start off with the Super Bowl because obviously we've finally got our Super Bowl matchup set up, 49ers and Chiefs. Adnan, my biggest thing that I'm trying to figure out here is I think the 49ers have the better roster. I know the Chiefs have the better quarterback. I'm trying to figure out how big of a gap that is and how obviously, I don't feel good betting against Mahomes ever, either theoretically or actually betting against him. How do you see this matchup in terms of roster versus quarterback gap?
Yeah, you're bang on, Andrew. I feel the exact same way. I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan, so I still have nightmares what happened a year ago, and I kept telling everybody, we've got the better team, they've got the better quarterback, we're going to win this game. And the Eagles, of course, had the lead at the half, and then Mahomes takes over, and unfortunately for my guys, we were unable to win it. So my wife's actually from the Bay Area originally. She's from San Jose, and I keep telling her, listen, as a Niners fan, I know you're favored, and I don't want to get you anxious, but I would never bet against Mahomes and Andy Reid in a situation like this. Like, obviously, Mahomes is the headliner, but again, with my Eagles ties, I just think Andy Reid's an incredible coach, particularly when it comes to halftime adjustments. Now, Shanahan certainly proved his worth for the Niners against the Lions. Whatever they did at the half, they completely changed that game, coming roaring back from 17 points down, and clearly, up and down at will, their offense to do what they wanted to do against the Lions defense. But I'm with you, man. I would not bet against Mahomes and Andy Reid in a Super Bowl situation. And I'm not a gambler, but I do find it interesting looking at these numbers and such. And so I checked yesterday. I saw the Niners were favored -2, and I said, "That's crazy to me. I can't like this." We've seen Mahomes as an underdog. Absolutely, exactly. It should pretty much be a toss-up. I don't even think you could favor a team. If you did, I'd probably favor the Chiefs -2 because it's just their track record and what they've done. And but I'm with you. I think overall the Niners have the better team. I mean, offensively, they're just ridiculous how many weapons they have. They have a lot more weapons than Mahomes does, which is Kelsey, and then a little Marquez Valdez-Scantling here and there, and a bunch of guys who are known for more than drops than catches this year. Whereas Purdy's obviously terrific, McCaffrey's sensational, George Kittle's excellent. Ayuk made the catch, which completely changed the entire game with that 51-yard catch. Mm-hmm. So I think they've got more weapons there. Defensively, now I love Fred Warner. I think he's obviously an all-world, all-pro linebacker, but the Lions really kind of ran at will against them. So I do think there's concerns there with the Niners defense, particularly the running game. I don't know how much Andy Reid's going to use Pacheco as far as maybe early on running the ball, but I do think the Niners' rush defense is particularly concerning to me. I think their secondary can hold up. And then we talk about Kansas City, and it's funny. We're 3 minutes into this conversation. I mean, we mentioned their defense, which is the reason they won the game. I mean, right. Chris Jones was outstanding. Their secondary is amazing. I mean, it's not mistaken to say that Mahomes is the star. Of course he is. But their defense really is a difference maker this year. And again, I credit longtime Eagles assistant, former Giants defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo. Like, one thing about Spags is he's going to bring pressure, and he makes it exciting to watch defense. He coaches defense the way I like it, which is blitz heavy and disguising packages. So they're going to try to make life miserable for Brock Purdy and put pressure on him, which should be fun. But this is a different Chiefs defense than what we've seen in the past, right? We've seen Mahomes before with the Superman cape, dragging his team like LeBron and the Cavs a few times. So this is really a balanced team. But I'm with you overall, Andrew. I think Niners is the better team. Mahomes is the better quarterback.
Adnan, as you're watching both games unfold last weekend, what was harder for you to process about how the losing staff executed? Was it the Ravens' reluctance to run the football, or was it Dan Campbell's constant aggressiveness in moments he didn't need to be?
The Ravens, without question. I thought I couldn't believe how they wouldn't run the ball, and they got away from what made them so successful all year long. And it's pretty frustrating for Lamar Jackson. I think this was his, I wouldn't say his last chance. Clearly, he's 27. He's going to have other chances, but this was his best chance so far. And all the cards seem to be lined up for them. I mean, at home and rested and ready to go against what felt like a weakened Chiefs team, particularly their offense aside from Mahomes and Kelsey. This is your shot. And the fact they only put up 7 points, I mean, that's just abysmal. The fact they wouldn't run the ball, and it's very quizzical for John Harbaugh and company. I'm actually fully in support of Dan Campbell. I know it's been a talking point, understandably so, but I love it because he's been riverboat Dan all year. He's been aggressive all year, and I think you got to stick with what makes you successful. And particularly I think the one everyone's looking at is the fourth down with 7 minutes left, right? You kick the field goal, tied at 27. And I was arguing with my son Yusuf, who's 15, watching the game. No, kick the field goal. And I said, no, this is absolutely the right decision. I said, you're getting completely boat raced here in the second half, right? The Niners are an absolute juggernaut, and they've not only come back, they've now taken the lead. You've got to snatch momentum back, and this is the first time you've had any semblance of a drive. You got to score a touchdown here. I don't care there's 7 minutes left in the game. You tie it, big deal. Dan Levitar's agreeing with me. I listened to him yesterday. Dan goes, was there any inkling that the Lions would then stop the Niners? No. Like offensively, they did whatever they wanted with the ball. So I think if you kick that field goal, the Niners would score a touchdown anyway. 34-27, and who knows, was there a minute and a half left? There's probably not enough time. I mean, it's tough to play those probabilities, but I think you go for it. Because if you do get that fourth down, that does give you a boost. And if you do score a touchdown, all of a sudden now you say, hey, maybe we can hold the Niners to a field goal and we run out of here and we steal a victory. So I actually looked up the percentages analytics-wise, and apparently it's also a pick-em. Like in that situation with a 4th and 3 with that much time left in the game, I don't know the exact numbers on my head, but I looked it up. It was something like if you do it, it's like 47% or 50% probability, and if it works, you win the game 53%. Whereas if you kick the field goal, it was like 45% and maybe 48% you win the game. So the numbers were very equivalent, so you could go either way. To me, it's one of those plays you look back and you go, oh, my God, what are they thinking? But I don't agree. I think he was aggressive all year long. He's clearly felt the momentum was not on his team's side. He just knew his defense could not stop the Niners. It was their best chance to win. Now, what you could argue, which is a fair criticism of Dan Campbell, is then when they got the ball back, when they ran the ball on that third down, like that was a killer, right? Mm-hmm. They had to call the timeout and then score the touchdown and then go onside kick. That, I think, is a fair criticism. That why would you use that play call then? But, no, I think it's the Ravens to me. When I looked at that game, I go, man, you guys had a chance. Whereas Detroit, I mean, I think it's remarkable they were in that position, quite frankly. I mean, 3 seasons in to be, within a score of going to the Super Bowl for a franchise that's never even been in the Super Bowl, to me, that's overachieving. Now, in the same breath, I do think it's catastrophic because we all know you rarely get these opportunities. And I think Dan Campbell spoke about that very passionately after the game. You can't say to yourself, well, we got the NFC Championship game this year, so we're due for the Super Bowl next year. No, you might take a step back. Like, other teams will get better. Like, the Eagles are going to get better. The Cowboys will be better. There's going to be other teams who are going to be crashing the party. So you can't just say for Detroit, hey, our arrow's pointing up. This was a learning experience. We'll be back. You might not be. And that's, I think, what's most painful if you're a Lions fan, because this was a glorious opportunity for them. But again, big picture, I think you overachieved. You won the playoff games when people didn't expect you to be. You were on the road in a hostile environment, almost won. I think for Detroit, there's a lot of solace you can take, even from a loss.
We're talking with Adnan Virk from the MLB Network, NHL Network, and Cinephile Pod. Adnan, I made the argument earlier this week that there's no single game in sports that affects a player's legacy more than the Super Bowl does. And with that kind of idea in mind, I've been thinking a lot about what this game means for Brock Purdy versus Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Mahomes, I think all time is on pace to land somewhere between like Joe Montana and Tom Brady. So we're pretty sure what he is as a quarterback. But do you have any idea either with a win or a loss, historically where Brock Purdy kind of starts to land? Because, I mean, he could end up being Trent Dilfer. He could end up being, somewhere in between there. How do you think this game affects Brock Purdy specifically, since there's so much controversy over what he is as a quarterback?
Yeah, I think it's hard to have any one game as a litmus test for a player. I think he's certainly a unique talent, and it's really cool to be able to say this guy went from being Mr. Irrelevant to now being the quarterback in the Super Bowl. Maybe he is slightly overrated by the media at large. Like, I don't put him necessarily as a top 3 or top 5 quarterback in football right now. I personally wouldn't vote him as the MVP. To me, Lamar's the MVP. Maybe McCaffrey and Purdy split some votes together. I get that, but listen, he's talented. There's no question about it. I mean, he's overcome quite a bit of adversity to get to this point. I've been skeptical all along, and he's surpassed virtually every test so far. I mean, it has to say something about your team and your character if you're down 17 points in your rally, and they were able to do so. And he's been calm and composed, and what I've been impressed by is his ability to run when he needs to. I think even on the broadcast, I don't I think Romo said something like, he's not exactly Lamar Jackson, but when he needs to run, he does. And there was a couple of big third and fours, third and twos. He was able to scramble for like 10, 12 yards and get the first downs and was able to do that. So he obviously has a strong arm and he's accurate and all the rest of it. But yeah, unless he's like an absolute dud, like unless he throws like 4 interceptions, I think people are going to say Brock Purdy's a good quarterback regardless of the outcome. I think he's going to have a good performance, but I do think that Chiefs defense is legit. Like I wouldn't be surprised if we're all watching this game and he goes something like 18 of 27, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. And those picks might be very untimely because that's how good Casey's defense is. So I think we'll walk out of that game and say, Purdy's clearly an excellent quarterback. He's their guy, but he might not win because that's how good the Chiefs defense is.
Adnan, this week we've seen, I'm going to change gears here. We've seen the Twins send off Jorge Polanco. We've seen the Jays sign veteran Justin Turner. Jock Peterson joins the D-backs. Not only how do you grade some of these offseason moves for these teams, but which of these moves or a move that you have seen so far this offseason moves the needle for that team in particular? Because at least some of the teams mixed into here, you have the D-backs who were runner-ups, World Series runner-ups last year, and the Jays who are always competitive. How do you see some of these off-season free agent moves or trades move the needle for these organizations?
Yeah, of the 3, I look at the Mariners one as moving the needle the least. I think Polanco is a good player, and certainly he's hit historically. They give up prospects and some other things, so it's tough to really see what Minnesota gets back. But I think Seattle still has work to do. They're going to hope that they can build around, obviously, the likes of Julio Rodriguez and J.P. Crawford and Ty France, and they hope that Polanco can fit in well with that offense. But that remains to be seen if they're good enough to challenge. It was a really competitive division. Obviously, the Rangers won the World Series, and the Astros look formidable once again, especially after they signed Josh Hader. But I think of the other moves you mentioned, I like the Blue Jays signing Justin Turner. Yeah, he's 39 years of age, but he had 23 home runs and 96 RBI. And clearly Toronto's offense needed improvement. He can be pretty much the DH for them moving forward. I mean, obviously you're going to spell Vladdy here and there, George Springer at DH day. Justin Turner can play third base, but he's clearly below average defensively. So I do think they still have a concern with what happens with Matt Chapman, because I don't think you can put Turner at third base on an everyday basis. That's just untenable. Chapman's an elite defender, and as I said, Turner's a suspect. But as a hitter, as a guy that can go out there and hit you 280, 20 home runs, driving 80 or 90, Justin Turner is that guy. And especially in a one-year deal, $13 million, I think that works out both well for Toronto and Justin Turner. And I like Jock Peterson. What really helps them with Arizona is they're so righty-heavy, is that Jock really gives them an important left-handed complement for all the righties in that lineup. That, to me, is, I think, really what he brings value there. And listen, he's a guy with power, and he's certainly had great years with the Dodgers, and Arizona's tinkered a little bit. Like, I give them credit. They made the World Series as an 84-win team, but they've added a little bit. Eduardo Rodriguez, obviously, I think is a good pitcher. They had to start, they had a bullpen game in the World Series. You never want to see that because their depth wasn't quite strong enough. But now I think that they feel pretty good about the fact that, Eduardo Rodriguez certainly slots in well behind Zach Gallen. You got Brandon Pfaadt as well, and Merrill Kelly's a good pitcher. So I think that Arizona's definitely made improvements, and Jock's a good addition. But I particularly like Justin Turner. I think he showed in the AL East with the Red Sox he can still hit. I think he'll hit again with Toronto.
Adnan, I got to ask you about my favorite team, the Boston Red Sox. It might maybe a little therapy session here. I've been obviously super frustrated basically ever since the Mookie Betts deal with the front office. Is there any hope for me, especially in the starting rotation, or should I kind of just fast forward past baseball season again this year?
Yeah, I think it could be tough, man. Listen, Alex Cora is my buddy. Our years together at ESPN will always be bonded by the fact we were working the 1 a.m. shift on ESPN2. Whenever I see him, we still joke to this day. We used to work the 2 and a hook, which means that was jargon for the 2:30 a.m. Saturday college, because that was coming off of college football. It was just a disaster. So I will always root for AC because he was with me for the 2 and a hook, and I think he's a brilliant manager and as good a manager in the game of baseball. And by the way, I think Boston should lock him up. Last time I checked, I believe this is the last year of his deal. So in case things could not go any worse for Boston, you can't lose Alex Cora. He's too valuable to them as a manager. But I think those are well-founded concerns about the pitching staff. I mean, Sale gets traded, which I don't have an issue with because he currently hasn't been the same guy, and injuries have impacted him. But I just don't see how they're going to be successful in that division. I mean, the Orioles are awesome, and they add Jackson Holliday, the number 1 prospect in baseball. Matt Holliday's going to be on that team at some point. Another year of Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson and that kind of young core is going to be strong. The Rays, every year we sleep on, they're going to win 90 to 95 games. Yankees add Juan Soto. Him with Judge together is formidable. I think Marcus Stroman's a good pickup for their starting staff. Hopefully they get bounce backs from Rodon, et cetera. But the Yankees are, let's say, 90 wins. Maybe that's a jump from 82 a year ago, but I think from that mix. And Toronto, to me, was an 89-win team. They're an underachiever.
Mm-hmm.
They should be 90, 92 wins. So for Boston, I don't see anything but last place in the American League East. Yeah, they can hit. They certainly got, some great players there. And obviously Devers is always fun to watch. And Yoshina's very good, but I don't see it, man. As you said, their pitching staff, I just don't know how they're going to get 27 outs on a consistent basis. It's going to be tough. And I like some of their players, Connor Crawford, obviously, and Garrett Whitlock can do some things. But I think it's going to be bleak, quite frankly, for Boston. Although AC can work some magic. I mean, that team should be 75 wins, and they'll get them to 80 wins, but I don't know. It's going to be hard for them, I think.
Adnan, speaking of another team with troubles in the American League, the team that finished last in baseball, not just last season, but in seasons before, the Oakland A's, or am I even allowed to say Oakland in front of the A's anymore? Because who knows if they will be playing in Oakland while their field is, quote unquote, so-called being built in Vegas, if that's even still a thing. Are they going to be the Coyotes, the Arizona Coyotes of baseball, playing in like a college stadium? Like, can you give some explanation on what's happening with the A's this season?
Yeah, my understanding is they're going to be in Oakland this year because this is the final year of their lease. So I think you can still call them the Oakland A's for at least one more year. And then I believe that stadium is not going to be ready until 2027. So that looks like 2 years there. They could be nomads before they find a spot. So I know there's a few options being floated around. As you said, with the Coyotes playing in an arena which seats like 5,000 people, that could be an option. It's definitely bizarre. There's no question about it. It's not what anybody wants in the short term, but hopefully long term it does work out, and baseball in Vegas will be as successful as hockey and football have been. But the short answer is I'm not really sure. I know for this year they're going to be in Oakland. That's going to happen. They can always somehow negotiate with Oakland to extend the lease 2 more years until the park is ready in Las Vegas. But we all know how acrimonious it's been. So I highly doubt that Oakland would say, yeah, great, 2 more years you can hang out here and remind us the fact you're leaving us soon. So I think they're going to have to find something to do. I mean, there wasn't one idea they could share some home games with the San Francisco Giants. Like, basically, when the Giants were on the road, the A's would play at home in San Francisco. But I'm not sure how that's going to work. Or there could be temporary solutions. Maybe in Vegas, they put in a AAA ballpark. Although I don't believe it has a dome. So I don't know. Like that could be a little hot. So I don't know, man. All I know is this. I think in 2027, the park's ready. And 2024, they're playing the A's. 25 and 26. I really don't know what the answer is there. I'll be honest.
All right. And then before we let you go here in a few minutes, I've got to get some movie questions in. One of my favorite things that you do is that Cinephile Pod. And so I'll give you some broad questions here, so you've got a little runway. First one, what is not just the best, but also your favorite movie that you watched this year, and then either your best or favorite individual performance that you saw on film this year?
Yeah, so my favorite movie of the year was Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm an enormous Scorsese fan, and this was a notable nomination, by the way, for him as Best Director. This is now 10 nominations as Best Director. That's the most of any living director. He eclipses his good friend Steven Spielberg by 1. So I thought it was just a masterpiece. I've seen the movie 4 times. I saw it at the critics screening. I saw it opening day. I saw it on New Year's Eve because I got a link sent to me because of Cinephile, I'm in the Critics' Choice Association. So I get all these screeners sent to me, which is obviously incredible. It's the only way I can really do the job, because otherwise you'd spend so much money trying to see all these movies. But the point is, the screener link said to me it expires at midnight. So I suddenly watch it again. So that was how my New Year's Eve was spent, watching it for the 3rd time. And then my wife hadn't seen it yet, and I said, I'll watch it with you. So it was on Apple Plus, as you guys know, streaming now, which I encourage everyone to do if you haven't seen it yet. So I've seen it 4 times, and I just think it's an absolute masterpiece. It's so haunting and powerful, and I think it's beautifully shot and excellent performances across the board, particularly Lily Gladstone, who's got a good chance at winning Best Actress. Right now, I think Emma Stone has a slight edge for Poor Things, but Lily's right there. She won the Golden Globe, gave a wonderful speech. Marty's not going to win, unfortunately. Nolan's going to win for Oppenheimer, which is a great movie, which I've seen twice, and I really enjoyed watching that on the big screen. But I was thrilled that Bob De Niro got nominated. De Niro hasn't been nominated in a dozen years since Best Supporting Actor for Silver Linings Playbook. I was shocked he wasn't nominated for The Irishman. I was very disappointed that didn't happen, but he's amazing in Killers of the Flower Moon. But my single favorite performance is one of my favorite actors. That's Paul Giamatti. I thought he was amazing in The Holdovers, which he's nominated for Best Actor. That's his first ever nomination for a Best Actor Academy Award. He's only been nominated once before, supporting actor for Cinderella Man. Sideways, this is the 20th anniversary of Sideways, which he wasn't even nominated for. And I went back. That was the year that Jamie Foxx won for Ray, which is a great movie. But how the hell Johnny Depp was nominated for Finding Neverland ahead of Giamatti for Sideways? I'll never figure that one out. But, I'm really pulling for Giamatti. And my friend Ben Lyons said he thinks he's going to win. According to most of these gambling sites, again, I don't follow these things, but I just kind of casually look at it. Cillian Murphy has been the favorite for Oppenheimer, which is going to win Best Picture, Best Director. It's going to win a bunch of awards, maybe even screenplay for Nolan. So he's been the favorite. Bradley Cooper, a lot of buzz for Maestro. But Ben said to me, listen, man, your guy's going to win. And I'll tell you why. Ultimately, it does come down to a popularity contest. And everyone loves Paul Giamatti. He's been an actor, working hard since 97, 98. He has one scene in Donnie Brasco. He's one scene in My Best Friend's Wedding, Julia Roberts. He's got a couple scenes in The Truman Show. Then American Splendor, which is a film I love, put him on the map. And then, of course, Sideways and all the rest of it. People love him from Private Parts, right? The Howard Stern movie. So, he's one of these guys that's one of these hard workers, never been nominated. He's in his mid-50s. He goes, I think your guy's going to win. Because ultimately, if you go Cillian Murphy, Oppenheimer's a brilliant film, but it really is Christopher Nolan's achievement. I think Giamatti might win, and nothing would make me happier. I thought he was – The Holdovers, by the way, if you haven't seen it, he plays it. I think it's really a role that's close to him because his father, of course, the late Bartlett Giamatti, who very famously was baseball commissioner, banned Pete Rose, died of a heart attack a year later. He was the president of Yale, and Giamatti comes from a family of teachers. And, he gave a wonderful speech at the Critics' Choice Awards. I was there in Los Angeles. He said, listen, my whole family's teachers. Teachers do a good thing. You should love your teachers. It was really, really impactful what he said. And he plays a boarding school teacher who's a little crusty, has some ocular issues, smells like fish. But it's really funny. And it's from Alexander Payne. If you know his work, of course, they did Sideways together. He did The Descendants with George Clooney. Payne's just a really gifted director. So I'm pulling hard for Killers of the Flower Moon, which I don't think will do very well at the Oscars because Oppenheimer's really going to clean up. But I do have a soft spot for Giamatti. Hopefully he can pull through for a Best Actor win.
And then we got a hard out right in about 1 minute. You'll hear the music when we have about 30 seconds left. But I have to know, because just listening to that response, you are so passionate about this alter ego of yours. Who or what was your driving force getting into film and TV?
Yeah, my mom always loved movies when we were kids, and it was always a fun ritual. She'd make a big batch of popcorn, and we'd pop on a movie, and she always loved old movies. So she got me into a lot of, old film noir. So I used to love those Bogart movies and Cagney movies, the gangster films of the 40s, and Casablanca is one of my all-time favorites. And it's kind of like with sports, right? You find your favorite team, and you learn more about them and learn about history, and similarly for me. So I adored Scorsese, very quickly loved his movies, and I started looking up who are his influences, who are his favorite directors. I'd watch the top 3 movies of a certain actor, Brando, De Niro, etc., and that's what happened. Love the Heart Out, by the way. Even the warning with the music.
We got you.
Man, thank you so much for joining us. If we get a chance to talk to you again, I may have to spend like half the interview just asking you about Dan Le Batard because I'm a huge fan, so I may have to spend some time doing that. But thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, Dan and those guys are the best. You get the show. Thanks, Ravi. Thanks, Andrew.
Hey, thanks, man.
That's Adnan Virk, MLB Network, NHL Network, Cinephile Pod. So happy he was able to join us. Coming up next, our Wednesday friend, Andy Kendeigh from KETV.
We will be back. We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And we are brought to you by our friends at Dyer Law. If you're dealing with a personal injury accident, you can count on the Dyer Law team to provide you with a helping hand no matter what you need, no matter what you're dealing with. Call the Dyer Law team, 402-393-7529, or visit dyer.law to chat with trusted professionals about your personal injury claim. That's DYER.law. Joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is Andy Kendeigh from KETV. Hey, Kay, how are you this morning?
Morning, boys. What's happening?
Hey, it's an Andy Kendeigh day.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's one of those good ones.
Yeah, you know what, man? I'm going to start this off right here because I'd like to give you the floor. Omaha's lost or will be losing a pair of good ones under your watch. How much responsibility do you take in running them out of town?
Full responsibility. If you notice, no question. We saw the news yesterday. It became official when Matt Foster announced that he was moving on, taking his talent elsewhere, and I cannot thank him enough. You know, people don't realize what goes into doing our stuff, and you guys know it. There's so many people behind the scenes that help you out and make sure that you don't look foolish, or at least less foolish than you would already be without him. And Matt has just been a just a consummate professional and one of the hardest workers I've ever worked with. But it's sometimes the business takes you different directions, and that's what's happening here. And we wish Matt nothing but the best. The weird thing about Matt Foster is that he started right before COVID. Like, talk about a weird curveball to get thrown into. He started in December of 2019. He's just getting his feet wet, and all of a sudden COVID hits, and they kind of throw him into the news portion of the news department. He became a news photographer during COVID. It was just, and for him to get through that, like everybody, he just kind of adapted, adjusted, and he kind of really showed what he was all about there, because he was always came to work with a great attitude. Yeah, he will be very, very, very missed.
Man, I know firsthand that feeling, because I joined my sports department in TV in Sioux City in August of 2019. So I got a taste. I got a taste of high school football. I was getting a taste of high school basketball, and then all the weird stuff happened. And we kind of were like doing a hybrid role of news and sports, because Iowa fortunately kept sports going during that time. I'm not sure how Nebraska tackled that, but I know we covered some schools that were still going. But I get it. I get Matt Foster's pain, and he is a stronger man than me to stick it out.
Yeah, and it's weird. We talked about how different that time was, and it really wasn't that long ago. Even though it seems like about 20 years ago, all the different things he had to go through in the fall of 2020, and OPS didn't play football and the rest of the area did. And it was just a weird deal. And then, even in the spring, carried over to the NCAA tournament. Remember, it was all under one roof. Well, not under one roof, but all in one city in Indianapolis. And Creighton makes this magical run. And, even covering the Huskers that fall was weird, because the season was so late, and being in a press box, and you had 2 seats in between you, you're wearing masks. It was just, thank goodness that's behind us.
Couldn't agree more.
AK, what's keeping you busy this week? I imagine a lot of high school basketball. I imagine you're kind of running all over the place trying to keep up as things get ramped up here towards the end of the regular season. Where are you spending your time this week?
Well, it's actually kind of a weird like kind of hybrid week, because the normally you can always rely on the pillars of Creighton and Nebraska basketball playing on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the case this week, because of whatever reason the schedule is such. Creighton has a rare Friday night home conference game, which is just odd.
Bizarre.
Thank television for that. And then, and then Nebraska has a big one Thursday against Wisconsin. But beyond that, I'm just looking forward to tonight. We've got a couple of big women's basketball games tonight. Nebraska women, they've got this is a sneaky important game against Purdue, and then Creighton has a big rematch against Marquette. The Nebraska game is really interesting, because Purdue is kind of an average team, and that's one of those games at home that you're expected to win, and it really hurts more if you lose than it helps if you win. You know what I mean? So they better win this thing, because their projections. ESPN had the bracketology for the women for Nebraska at about the 8-9 area, but there's other brackets that I've seen them left out in. So, they've got to win some games here down the stretch. Their net is decent, but they can't afford to lose a game like tonight. Where, with Creighton playing Marquette, this is just a good quality women's basketball game tonight at DJ Sokol. This is a good one, especially because Creighton dropped round one, and then. We're focused on that this evening. And then, interesting thing too this weekend, fellas, there's a softball event for Nebraska in Lincoln on Saturday. And I think that's, normally in years past, you're like, if we were in the area, maybe we can double up or something up in Lincoln. Now it's like,
now it's a must.
That's a must cover, and we're going to do that and get the whole Jordy Ball experience, and as well as the team. Because I think the anticipation leading up to softball season is going to be like we've never seen.
Right. Stay right there for me, AK, because, I was thinking a lot of the same this week, just because baseball and softball have really started to pick up. Like, we're close to those seasons, so it gets me excited. How much does Jordy Ball's presence change the conversation for this team this year to win more than just a conference title?
Well, I think it certainly, obviously, is the biggest story for the spring for us, just to see how she transitions to a new school and bringing her talents to Nebraska. Because softball is one of those sports that if you have an ace on the mound, it can make the world of difference. Now, it's not just a one-person show, obviously, but if you have a pitcher who can really dominate, you've seen that in the past, how much that can help. And I'm curious to see what impact it has. We could talk X's and O's until the cows come home, and obviously they're going to be a better team, right? But what I'm as intrigued, if not more, is how Nebraska handles the attention surrounding Jordy, how Jordy handles the attention surrounding her. And she's handled it like oh my God, she's just a veteran beyond her years. You know what I mean? I mean, she's handled every situation and news conference with grace and style. And I'll be interested to see how just the configuration of how they're going to set up the field and Bowling Stadium. How many tickets are they going to be able to sell, and how many people show up game after game after game? A weekend, for a weekend series, how much are they going to draw? So those are the questions that I'm really intrigued by, in addition to how they perform on the field, because I think there's some real excitement surrounding this team. And yeah, they are contenders for the Big Ten. Yes, they are expected to go to the NCAA tournament, but not just get into the tournament, but make a deep run. And I think that's fantastic. It's going to be like a spring we haven't seen here in a while.
Andy, a couple minutes left here. Obviously not a normal midweek game, a little later in the week for Nebraska men's basketball, but they've got number 6 Wisconsin at home tomorrow night. Is it fair to say if Nebraska wins that game, they can feel fairly confident about making the NCAA tournament, despite the fact that they really still haven't found an answer for their road struggles?
I don't know if you can lock them in because you still have games. You still got home games against Michigan and Penn State. You lose those, and Minnesota, so you lose those at home, and that kind of negates any quality win that you get against the Wisconsin. But I do think it helps their cause. Every little bit helps, but I do think that for them to get in, they're going to have to win a game or two on the road, at least 2. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, they got 10 games left. 5 home, 5 on the road. Your roadies are at Illinois. You've got at Northwestern. You got at Indiana, at Ohio State, at Michigan. So win 3 of those and you're in. Win 2, you're like, yeah, maybe, and then take care of business at home. So you're going to have to go 6-4. I think down the stretch, and then maybe win a game or 2 in the tournament to make sure that you're feeling comfortable. Because right now, you look at the brackets, they're right on that Dayton last 4 in line, which would be fine. I think that'd be a great step in the right direction. But I think, seeing what they are capable of at times this season, I think leads the fan base to expect more.
That's Andy Kendeigh from KETV. Andy, we appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, fellas. Have a good week.
Thanks, brother.
That's Andy Kendeigh from KETV. Coming up next, we will wrap up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, and ESPN Tri-Cities. Of course, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. We'll be back next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We are live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as we wrap up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Want to tell you about our friends at the Team Jack Foundation. Team Jack is doing everything they can to find better treatments for childhood brain cancer and eventually a cure. They're currently funding 13 projects and collaborating with national institutions such as Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, Columbia University, and more. Of course, they've got a huge project with University of Nebraska Med Center with the creation of the Nebraska Childhood Brain Tumor Program. And you might be asking yourself, okay, you know, there's a lot of different causes and things. Why is this one important? Well, first of all, obviously, childhood brain tumors and cancer are incredibly serious, and the treatments are really out of date. It's been almost 50 years since the treatments that are currently used were developed, and they are highly toxic to the children. Even if they survive the brain tumor, they often are still left with lifelong issues due to these toxic treatments. The goal, find better treatments for now and eventually one day find a cure. That's why to date they've raised over $12 million for this cause. If you want to get involved, you want to donate, want to know what events they've got going on, make sure you go check out teamjackfoundation.org. You can get gear. You can donate directly on the website or find out how to get involved with events, all at teamjackfoundation.org.
I'm a donator.
There you go. teamjackfoundation.org, a great cause, and obviously fighting a very worthy cause there as well, and very, very closely tied to Nebraska and Nebraska football. So something very near and dear to our hearts there as well. Wanted to touch on something that Andy Kendeigh said about Nebraska basketball there for a second.
Dribble, shoot.
Dribble, shoot. I asked him about Nebraska's kind of tournament resume a little bit there. They currently, I like to use, obviously we talked to our friend Joe Lenardi. He's the OG godfather of bracketology. Obviously I like to use his stuff. I also like to go to Bracket Matrix because they compile a bunch of different bracketologists. So you get sort of an average of all of these bracketologists currently. And as you get closer to March, more and more bracketologists put in their brackets. Currently, they have, as of yesterday, most of these were put in either yesterday or on Monday. They've got just under 90 bracketologists that they're compiling right now. Nebraska currently sitting at a 10 seed. So if it's that 11 seed game, you kind of have to watch out for, because that's where you get into that play-in game in Dayton. So they are kind of on that borderline. A win against Wisconsin would go a long way to getting them off of, or getting them further away from that play-in game 11 line, sort of that danger zone there that you don't necessarily want to be in. They've got a little bit of work to do in terms of seeding. I do think they're reasonably safe in their tournament resume right now, but that's assuming their season continues to play out sort of how it has. I think, maybe this is a hot take, you can tell me, I think they can lose tomorrow and not win any road games and still have a pretty decent shot at making the NCAA tournament. That would leave them with 19 regular season wins, which is going to be right on the border there. You get to 20, I feel really good. 19, you're really kind of playing with fire there. You probably need a first round Big Ten tournament win if you go in 19 regular season wins. But I don't think it's impossible to not win a road game and not win against Wisconsin and still have a resume to get in. Now, narrative wise, you might have a hard time with the committee saying like, hey, they didn't win a conference road game all year. That might be an issue, but resume-wise, I still think it's doable.
So, I don't think it's as hot of a take as some people may ingest it, but I will say if Nebraska wins 19 games, they'll have to win 2 in the Big Ten tournament.
That's fair.
For me to feel comfortable saying they're going to make it if they lose out the rest of the way. Now, Nebraska is sitting at an 11 on bracketology, which is that play-in game, play-in territory, which, as you said, they're kind of playing with fire at that point. But I kind of look at this like NFL playoffs. Okay. So you had mentioned like they can get to 19 wins, win one game and still probably be pretty good in the committee's eyes. But I think if they're in that scenario, they're kind of like one of those bubble teams in the NFL where it's like they have to win week 18 in order to get into the playoffs.
Fair.
And like that's the territory I think Nebraska would be sitting in. And so that's why I think it's a 2-win Big Ten tournament versus a 1.
If you win 2, you feel really good.
I think that's where you win week 18.
Yes.
In this scenario,
you only win 1, and you're waiting for somebody else to lose.
Exactly.
You're kind of watching those other scores. You're hoping that in those mid-major conference tournaments, there's no upset, so you don't have any bid stealers, if you will. So I think that's totally fair. I'm on the same page with you there. I will say, if they win out at home, that would include a win against number 6 Wisconsin. I think they're in because that's 20 wins. You'd have two of the best wins in the country with Purdue and Wisconsin, number 1 team and a top 10 team. I think you're in if you beat Wisconsin and you win out at home. And that's not a crazy scenario because the other home games are Michigan, Penn State, Minnesota, and Rutgers, all winnable games. Though you really don't have any games that you look at and you're like, oh, that's scary outside of Wisconsin. And to be fair, on the road, the only scary one you have is the next one against Illinois. I know Northwestern's a good team. That's a winnable game. I know Indiana is a decent team. That's a winnable game on the road. At Ohio State, they're kind of struggling a little bit. That's a winnable game on their own. Same thing with Michigan. All the road games and all the home games outside of their next 2 games, Nebraska, if they're not favored, is going to be a coin flip in. So they're in a good spot in terms of how their schedule plays out. It's really not backloaded in terms of difficulty on the way out. But I think the road game thing is more of a comfort thing for Husker fans and media than it is a necessity to make the tournament, because I feel really uncomfortable with the idea of them not winning a conference road game all year. Like, that makes me feel uneasy, but their resume is still very solid and they can get away with it. I just don't think you want to have to get away with it.
You just have to remember too, though, that they had a very easy non-con schedule.
They did,
which can add to those win totals. So even if they get a win against Purdue and even if they get a win against Wisconsin, you have to remember they also have wins against, Oregon State, who's not a good team.
Yep.
They have wins against, I mean, we can even go deeper in the non-con. And
you like Florida A&M and
I can
your boys, Lindenwood.
My alma mater.
Lindenwood,
like
always
that.
up to no good.
They don't have a strong non-con schedule. So that's what worries me in the committee's eyes of saying, well, they don't have any road wins. They had like 12 wins to open the year. And how many of them were actually good wins for this team?
Kansas State,
right?
Michigan State's a good win.
Michigan State was a good one too.
Pretty good win.
We'll just call it 2 of the 12, right? And so because of that, it's like, well, how are those numbers skewed in the eyes of someone else? So there's a lot of worry there if you don't win a road game, even if you just win all your home games. Now, here's where I think you could get interesting is if they lose against Wisconsin and beat Illinois.
Yeah, I think that is actually.
I think that carries more weight.
I agree.
Than beating Wisconsin at home.
I agree, because it solves 2 problems for you. It's a quality win and it's a road win, and quality road wins are worth even more than quality home wins. Even though Wisconsin's a little bit better,
that could be their only
Illinois.
road win, and they'd be fine.
Yeah, you'd be fine, assuming you don't like crap the bed on the way out. But if that's your only road win, you're fine. For what it's worth, Ken Pom has Nebraska favored in 6 games the rest of the way out. Now, they have them losing their next 3. They have them losing to Wisconsin. They have them losing to Illinois. They have them losing to Wisconsin, to Northwestern. But then they have them winning 6 of their last 7, which I think would get them in. That'd put them at 21 wins, 21 and 10 at that point. And you'd be 10-10 in conference, I believe. My math is working.
Carry the 2.
I don't know. I think you'd be 21-10. You'd be either 11-9 or 10-10 in conference. That gets you in. I feel pretty good about that. But you're right. I'd feel way better. I would trade a Wisconsin loss at home for an Illinois win on the road. No questions asked. Because like you said, that's 2 birds, 1 stone. You get 2 problems out of the way, and it would be, again, it's late enough in the season too that'll be fresh in the committee's memory. You'll feel pretty good about that.
Now, don't get blown out by Wisconsin.
Yeah, you don't want to,
because that will also be remembered.
Yes, and you want to be more competitive than you were at Wisconsin, because even though it was a 16-point game,
Nebraska played
14.
really well.
No, 16.
They shot the ball well.
They didn't play a lick of defense.
They didn't play strong defense is right, but I was going to go like their speed just didn't match Wisconsin's in that game. But it wasn't like they shot the ball horribly where it could have been 40.
You need to be more competitive against Wisconsin than you were. If you do that and maybe get a win on the road at Illinois, I think you feel pretty good. For what it's worth, the bracket matrix has the Creighton Blue Jays currently as a 3 seed.
I saw that on Bracketology as well.
Which would tie their highest seed ever in the NCAA tournament. So something to keep an eye out for there as well. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7 Sports here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is Husker 24/7 senior writer, Brian Christopherson.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit of a circus act.
Brian Christopherson.
Well, I mean, that's pretty interesting.
Brian Christopherson.
I kind of enjoy that.
Here is Brian Christopherson.
Welcome into hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and for this third hour, KFOR in Lincoln. Joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline, is our friend Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. BC, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Good, man. Thanks for joining us.
Always good to be here.
Brian, we were having this discussion about Nebraska basketball right before you got on the air in regards to their NCAA tournament resume. If I could give you a guarantee that Nebraska wins out their home games, including Wisconsin tomorrow, or they win at Illinois, but I guarantee you nothing else in terms of wins and losses, which one are you taking?
That's good. That's a good question. I'd take Illinois and take my chance. Oh, no, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't.
Why not? Do it. Be that guy. That's who I am.
I think it's really close. I do think it's really close.
You know what? I'm gonna
that win.
Yep, yep. I'm gonna go with my original answer. Man, that's a good question though. There's no guarantee with it, huh? So anything can happen at home, but I like Nebraska to handle their business at home in the other games. I really do. I think that's a tall thing to say too, because we shouldn't just take it for granted that Nebraska is going to win all but like one of their games at PBA. But nonetheless, I would take the Illinois one. That would count as a quad one win. Mm-hmm. So there would be as much to it. The guarantee part that you don't have is where the question gets tricky. But I've always said I love Nebraska's slate the last 7 games after you get past the Northwestern game, starting with that Michigan one on February 10th, where you play Michigan twice. You play Minnesota at home. You play Rutgers at home. I believe they play Penn State at home. Ohio State and Indiana on the road. Those are the final 7. I truly believe this team, if they play their best ball, can go at least 5-2, 6-1 in that stretch. I believe that. But I've always worried about this stretch in the schedule and basically being 5-8 going into it. And some people kind of didn't want to hear that like a week or so ago, but now there's a reality to it. Like, okay, you've got to win one of these Wisconsin or Illinois games, or you're going to Northwestern 5-7 and you're staring that in the face. So I take the Illinois one, take my chances, see what happens, see if they can't also get another one on the road at like Ohio State or Indiana, and then hold court against those other teams at home that aren't having as good of years.
BC, okay, let me throw one more fun one at you. Because
that was fun, by the way.
I was looking at national championship odds in the break because I've been following along with 2 teams right now, one being Creighton, one being Texas, and I like seeing the fluctuation between where their odds are going. And then I thought about Nebraska for a hot sec because we were talking about what seed they would be if the tournament started now, and it's either a 10 or an 11. And we talked to John Fanta maybe about a couple of weeks ago, and he had said, like, I think it was Fanta, maybe it was some other college basketball analyst that said, you know, this is the sleeper team. Like, this is like the Dayton of the world, or like that not as good in their conference team that could be the team that makes a deep run in the tournament. I mean, SDSU did something similar last season. But if you could take one player in college basketball off of any team, you can pluck them.
Oh,
you put them on Nebraska, okay? And that's the guy that helps lead this team to a national championship. Is there one player in basketball today that you could do that? Because as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, man, I don't know if there's a Campbell Walker, right? I don't know if there's somebody that, like, hey, Nebraska could really use a strong point guard, a creator, but also a scorer for himself. And I don't know if there is that in basketball today, but maybe you have, you know, somebody you could add to this team and just instantly know they're a title contender.
I try not to pretend about stuff I'm not as knowledgeable as others on. No, I do. Actually, I do pretend that sometimes, but I'm not going to this time. I'm in my Nebraska Big Ten bubble with so much of like what's out there with college basketball. I really am. So I don't know what I would answer to that. Whoever you would regard as the top point guard pick that you could make, that would be my pick. And I don't know who that guy is for which roster he represents, but that would be my pick for this particular team. I think you saw, you know, on on the road against Maryland, where you have 18 turnovers, 17 made shots, just a disaster of a day. And there's these moments where it feels like they do come a little bit undone. And it's not solely because of this, but it's a segment of it because they don't have that like guiding hand. Like even like, I always think about like, what if Chucky Hepburn were at Nebraska, on this particular team? Like, I think he could just fit so well and do like kind of fit the like last piece that they need. And so about guys I think about like right in front of my face, I think of Chucky. I think of like some of those tough dogs that Houston's got down there.
LJ Cryer,
Yeah, I mean,
Terrence Shannon Jr. at Illinois.
Yeah, so guys like that. I think point guard more than anything. Now Nebraska has their own way of doing it, and they've got multiple guys that can handle the ball and start the offense. But you know what I mean? It's that general who you just feel like you're in complete control when he's got the rock in his hands. And sometimes when things are getting a little, you're slipping on the ice a bit. I just don't know who that is, especially on the road for Nebraska. And I think it's hurt them.
We're talking with Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7, BC. So let me paint a profile for you and see if we're on the same page here. So you would like a point guard. When I was thinking of it, I was thinking maybe a bigger bodied point guard, maybe somebody that's like 6'3" So defensively, they're not a liability. Obviously, you want somebody that shoots the three decently. Is that kind of the profile you're looking at as the guy that could maybe put Nebraska over the top?
Yeah, he's got it. It has to be a physical guy who, and this is talking about what this team's got to do right now. That's got to be willing to attack the glass, and it's got to be all five on the floor going after the glass for this group. Like, there's been games, I think, when the rebounding's gotten out of hand, when we could look at like Rink Mast or whomever down, one of the bigger guys and kind of point a finger at them. But there's also guards who aren't, I don't think sometimes in those contests doing their duties of cleaning up, when the big guy's fighting to give them space to go get the ball. And so it's got to be somebody willing to do that. And obviously that's not happening. You're not making that trade or anything like that at this point in the season. So the big question is, can they get that type of stuff from Jamarcus Lawrence down the stretch? When is Juwan Gary coming back? Is huge. Like your junkyard dog. There's multiple things right now that are sort of in the wind where we got to see what happens. But it's got to be a full commitment on the glass because, as Hoiberg said, he's used this word multiple times this season. They've been punked on the road in rebounding a few times. And the Rutgers game was kind of embarrassing when they get 25 offensive boards. And then Maryland, what I thought was one of those games that you just walk out with your head down because it wasn't just that, Nebraska's offense was in a funk. They were just giving up easy stuff on the offensive glass. Everything was wrong about that game. So they've had some time to lick their wounds. They've been a different animal at PBA. They feed off the crowd. The crowd feeds off them. They've got to come out much like they did at Purdue. And I remember in that game, I wasn't expecting anything when I went to the gym that night. But in the first 2 to 3 minutes, I saw like stuff like happening, like guys on the floor. And you could just say, okay, they're here to fight. I don't know how it's going to, the scale's going to tip here, but they're going to be in this game because they're going to have that sort of intensity. And they need to come out and show this crowd they've got that right away. And this crowd will back them up. And I think they'll play off each other and we'll have a good game. So that's the hope for Thursday.
BC, real quick here. I think the name is right in front of us. I think it might be Boo Buie.
Oh, Boo Buie.
Oh, yeah.
I think
good player.
I think that maybe not national title, but I think he kind of fits that mold of a guy that takes you to that next level.
I think Fred Hoiberg would say that too, the way he talks about Boo Buie, who they got the best of Boo Buie recently, but he's coming around the corner again here in a couple of weeks, so that could be a tricky one.
All right, BC, let's come back to reality.
I really got to be careful on what I say about that. So
that's how I feel all the time too, and I'm not even.
So yesterday we spent some time looking at true freshman quarterbacks over the last 10 years. Okay.
Yeah.
And looking at the numbers that they put up. And then we talked a little bit about expectation versus reality. And I'm not going to ask you to to touch on Dylan Rhule here, I want you to touch on Glenn Thomas for a moment for me, because he was on the Husker Radio Network last night. And, as we think about the expectations for Dylan Rhule, of course that they're very high. But in terms of Glenn Thomas's role in making those expectations become reality, what do you think, or what did you kind of learn about how he conducts his business just in his short interview last night?
I guess probably the biggest takeaway was, if I would summarize it correctly, was listening more, talking less the first couple weeks on the job, like what his players, getting the feedback from them about where they're at, what has worked for them, what they've learned, what they knew last year. In the case of, Dylan and Danny are talking about their high school experience, but basically what is your floor right now? Where are you at? And then we'll take steps from there. But I think that's a wise process, and it's someone who, I know you guys have been thinking it could be Glenn Thomas for a month or so. So this isn't a big shock that he's here now. But the thing I like about him is, and I don't know if everybody knew this, but this came out last night too. I knew this, but he's known Satterfield for 20 plus years. And so this isn't if some people are thinking oh, this is awkward, co-OC, stuff like that, how's that going to work? I don't think it really is for them. I think have a tight-knit relationship. They know how each other works. They respect each other's knowledge of ball, and they're ready to put it together. And I've made the case, and I will continue, that this is good for Satterfield. It evens the weight out of how we talk about what happens over there. Last year when things went wrong, it was always all right, get your bow and arrow out and everybody aim at this guy who's coaching the QBs, and look how bad that offense is. And I understand some of that. That goes with the territory. I also was at times thinking he doesn't have much at QB. His running back and receiver room is decimated. Good luck. I was thinking in Liam Neeson when it's the good luck. That's what it was to whoever was in that role last year. And so I like now that it's a little more spread out, how we're going to talk about what we see on offense. We'll talk. It's not just going to be Satterfield, at him like a punching bag. And he gets to work with the tight ends and that Satterfield, and they want this to be a positionless offense. There's no position that is more adaptable to doing everything than that one. And so it should be a natural fit there. So I just like how Glenn Thomas fits into the puzzle. They know each other, and they can take off at a good clip pretty fast about what each other knows and how they operate, at least.
BC, it's kind of funny because, the more I think about this, the more I kind of realize it feels like Marcus Satterfield is sort of in will get absolutely no credit situation here, right? Because we look at the situation that was there last year with the quarterbacks and the offense and everything, and it's one of those things where, he was kind of the scapegoat, even though we know what the quarterback situation was like. Now, obviously, you have an upgrade at the quarterback position with Dylan Rhule. You also have Glenn Thomas coming in. So, yeah, Dylan Rhule is going to get a lot of that credit, but if the offense looks great, Marcus Satterfield's not getting any credit. And if it looks bad, he could still get blamed for it and be we need Glenn Thomas calling plays. He's sort of in a no credit or no win situation here.
There could be a little of that. Now, the nice part for him, though, is he's connected in job title now to the tight ends, which I think is one of the most fun groups on the roster with who's coming in and maybe if Fedoni takes a step and then you're Carter Nelson's out there in game 3 already doing stuff, which I think he might, by the way. I hate to hype someone up too fast, but that's what we do like to do about this time of year.
We like to hype people up really fast.
Yeah, let's do it though.
You want to hear my numbers for Dylan Rhule this year?
Yeah, but Carter Nelson, I was watching him even in those all-star games. People are I don't know how he's going to do against these 4 stars, covering them and all this stuff. It's from what I was told, he was getting open as he wanted to get open down at the Polynesian Bowl even prior to the game. So I think he's got a lot of skills to work with. But I think for Satterfield, he's got not just Carter, but Fedoni, Keelan Smith is a hybrid tight end. He's got these interesting pieces where that could help to your question, Ravi, where maybe a couple of those guys really take off and we get a little distracted by that. And if they're doing well on offense, you're right. It might go to more the other guy, the credit, but it's better than probably it was last year when you're just getting hit with the hammer every week about how things went.
BC, Glenn Thomas, going back to how he views the two true freshmen in the room, we can even pull Heinrich Harburg into this mix. He likes the intangibles of the quarterbacks, how those things will stand out early to him when he sees them in action. What do you think each guy's top intangible is that will help the engine go in their early development stages for the true freshmen, and then what you've seen out of Heinrich Harburg last season?
Okay. Intangible. With Danny Kaelin, I could start really fast. I think it's there's a connectivity that matters off the field that I think can translate to what he's throwing with his receivers. Just like he's just beloved by people once they get to know him, and he's a guy that people want to work hard with. And you saw it with how he was as a peer recruiter. And I really think that's a trait that can translate where guys are like, I know how much he cares. I'm going to care as much as he does and work with this guy to get him better and myself better. I think that's a big trait of Danny Kaelin that could help him. I think Dylan might have that. I don't know as much about him because he wasn't as local. And that sounds weird to say because of how high profile he was. But I'm interested in like Dylan in the interview setting here and getting to know him more in that sort of way. With Dylan, I think there's just an expectation that what helps him probably is knowing how to work and like what it takes as far as to be at the top level. Like not just because his dad played in the NFL, but when he first came up here for Friday Night Lights as a 15-year-old, his quarterbacks coach at the time down in Texas was John Kitna, who played, or his head coach, who played, in the NFL. And he's just been around guys like Matthew Stafford and other, people that know the game. So I think that's probably helped him. Like, this is how I have to operate to be really great. This is what it takes. Like, not just, working out, but like, what's my depth on my throws, all this stuff. When I was interviewing Jamal Banks, the wide receiver who transferred from Wake a couple weeks ago, he was really impressed with Dylan and just like how like in the details of being a quarterback he was, even in their little throwing session, like the depth he got and all these little things we don't even think about. So I think that's going to matter for him. And then Harburg, I guess you just say, nobody's going to, I really believe this about Heinrich. I think he's a quick processor of like stuff, and it didn't show in the passing game last year, but I think he's got a brain where if he connects with the coach right, he could take a step in the passing game. I haven't given up on what he can do. I'm not saying he's going to beat out the other guys or just all of a sudden be amazing, but I think we can see a way better version of him throwing the ball than we saw. And you say, well, why would you say he's a quick processor? I'd say that because nobody actually that I've covered has impressed me more like right after the game and how they can speak about what just happened in sort of an even manner and stuff than Heinrich Harburg last season. And I actually thought about that after one of the rough games he had, but he just had an ability, like if you actually think about how hard that is to go in there and say more than like 7 words or just spout out some cliche. And he would have thoughtful comments actually in the post game about stuff. And I just thought, this guy's sharp. Like he's got it up there. It's just, he's got to find that right coach who like gets him to another level with some of the intricacies of being a quarterback. But I think he's got material where it can work. And so that's what I'd say about him. I think he has the ability to show a much quicker blinker than we saw a season ago.
BC, a few minutes left here with you. I wanted to ask you about the roster update that got released yesterday. Any surprises there? I know it was a lot of walk-ons that were kind of maybe no longer listed on the roster, maybe some guys that were on a different side of the ball than that we had seen them on previously. Anything there that stuck out to you that's worth noting?
We can run through, some of the bullets points would be like Kane Williams was a guy I think people had hoped for at one point. He's not on there anymore. He was from Alabama a couple years ago. And, that goes to show you, though, and this isn't specific to Kane, just because a guy came from Alabama or Georgia or whatever, we get pretty fired up sometimes. A lot of things still have to go right, for that, especially if they haven't produced yet at that previous school. So I think it's kind of that lesson, like don't jump to a conclusion necessarily just because this guy, played at this particular school, like, oh, he must be great. Beyond that, an interesting thing is Jeremiah Charles and Bryce Turner, not surprising to me because they were working at DBs at times last year and even on the travel roster, but that's where they're at right now by label. But there's been a tug of war with, in a good-natured way, with McGuire and Evan Cooper over, are they a wide receiver? Are they a DB? So watch that one in the spring, like Charles and Turner. Do they stick at DB? And then lastly, Ethan Piper, I think, is worth, speaking about, like, just a great kid who, if this is the end and he's not on the roster at this moment, it was a serious injury he suffered. That's a guy who gave his all to the program. And I would imagine they'd maybe want him around somehow, some way, if he wants to be around, because he's just that kind of guy that people gravitate towards. So he has nothing to be ashamed of with what he's done as a Husker, and was recognized as so with some team awards. But it's too bad that it might be the end of the career with that injury, the way it happened.
BC, got about a minute 20 left. And, there's one thing that I kind of wanted to get to, but I may hold off for it for the next time we talk, because I think the answer is going to be a little bit more long form. But in terms of, I'll give you the last 30 seconds for this. What do you expect against Wisconsin tomorrow night?
I think they're going to come out and punch Nebraska and make it a real battle to the end. I guess I'd probably actually pick Wisconsin a little bit in this game, because I just think Wisconsin right now almost looks like they're Elite Eight Final Four type of team. I think they've got so many different pieces, and they just got to do a better job first and foremost on Chucky. There's all these different weapons, but in the game in Madison, it was 88-72. And Hepburn just played exactly as he wanted to play. It was his type of game at his tempo. They've got to get him out of rhythm and cause some chaos, get on the floor early, get the crowd going, see what happens.
They were my dark horse, man.
That's
I don't know if Ravi remembers,
dangerous.
but we had Mike Sauter on before the season started, and I said Wisconsin's going to be a dark horse. And Mike
That's
Sauter
a good pick.
Be very funny.
They've got like 2 or 3 guys that have come on since the season began that are just like way better than you thought they would be too. So they're a dangerous team.
That's BC, Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. BC, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
See you, man.
Coming up next, Anna Bellinghausen from Hurrdat Sports here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Now, Hurrdat Sports Digital Director, reporter, and host, Anna Bellinghausen.
There's a full version. Yeah, that was just a sneak peek.
Anna Bellinghausen.
This is unfortunately when I'm on my downfall right now. I feel like slowly.
Ding dang, it's Anna Bellinghausen.
Yes, I will beat you in a race.
No shot.
Anna Bellinghausen.
Yeah, so
Not great.
track will humble you, and I plan to humble Andrew.
Here is Anna Bellinghausen.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. That open can only mean one thing. That means our friend Anna Bellinghausen from Hurrdat Sports is here with us. Before we get to Anna, though, I need to remind you guys, since we're going to play
I'm going to beat Anna in a track race.
I'm pretty pumped up right now.
Feel free to remind us.
We need to set this up. We need to set parameters. But before we do that, I got to tell you about the parameters of the Warhorse Festival of Games.
On the other side of the table.
That's right. I gotta separate you guys.
You're like Dana White
with my busted hand here. I gotta be like, oh, guys, be careful. No, what I gotta tell you about is the Warhorse Festival of Games. This is your last day. You got to get in and get qualified for the $100,000 prop card challenge and a $20,000 grand prize drawing so that you can get a chance to win. That prop card challenge is obviously for the Pro Football Championship on February 11th. It is free to participate. You just have to be a Warhorse Rewards member. You get entries by having a $50 sportsbook ticket from the Warhorse Sportsbook and Casino in Lincoln. For every $50 sportsbook ticket, you get another entry into both the $100,000 prop card challenge and the grand prize drawing. You've got February 1st is the deadline to get those entries. And then on February 5th, the prop card will come out for you to make your picks. Go 25 for 25. You might be staring right down the barrel of six figures coming your way. Either way, you still have a chance to win $20,000 in that cash or free slot play grand prize drawing. Any questions, go to warhorsecasino.com. This is just for the casino in Lincoln. Go to warhorsecasino.com. It will give you all the details and whatever you need to know about getting qualified for the $100,000 prop card challenge and the $20,000 grand prize drawing. That is the Warhorse Festival of Games. Anna Bellinghausen, how are you this morning?
I'm great. I love the intro. It really got me pumped up this morning.
You got the juices flowing?
Yeah.
You ready to go outside
I'm
and
about
race?
to put my track spikes on. That's what I'm about to do.
You're going to need spikes because it's still a little slick out there. We've got kind of a skating rink in the parking lot a little bit when it freezes overnight. So you got to be careful. But no, I listen, I'm team Anna in the race here.
Thank you.
I think you're going to beat him. I think in a very short distance, it might be closer, but you get out to 100 meters. I think Anna's got you.
What are the odds?
Ooh.
If we're putting Warhorse odds on this.
What are the Warhorse Sportsbook's odds?
I'm going to have to think about this. I'm going to think about this. I will come.
Anna must be the favorite because everybo's taking Anna.
Yeah.
Oh, Anna's definitely the favorite. She's a Division I track athlete. Andrew does not work out at all. That's accurate,
Hey,
right?
don't call him out like that.
Hey, I'll let you think whatever you want to think, man.
He started to train, is what he's telling me. Because last week the answer was yes, I don't work out at all. He's starting to train.
Okay.
That's what we know. But
just like I told my soccer coach in high school, I played a lot of FIFA over the summer.
I know what I'm doing.
He's he got one of those old school like Wii track pads. You're like getting the Olympics.
A lot of Just Dance, man.
A lot of Just Dance. You could do Dance Dance Revolution. You go.
It's how I get my my like kickstart speed.
Get your fitness game right. You're
Yeah.
feeling good. All right. Well, we'll get some odds together. We'll put together parameters for this race.
I'll lay my bank account
on
me.
Oof. Do you have it? What's your distance? What distance are you willing to go to?
Aren't we running the 100?
I would say 100's
Okay.
fair. Yeah.
100's fair. All right.
200.
Like I
Might
said,
get a little gas at this age.
yeah, like I said, I think the 100 will be fine.
All right.
Anna's going to beat me off the start, but my stride will catch up to her.
I think you're gonna get gassed before the 100's over.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's 100 meters.
Can we
I'm just
start with
saying,
blocks or no?
Sure.
I mean,
Why not?
I'm going to call my old high school coach, Peter Cosme, and have him set this up for us.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
So we can have blocks and
Let's
everything.
get Kyle Byers out there, get some video going.
Yes,
we'll have the
yes.
whole crew. Let's make it a thing.
Let's go.
Yeah, we will.
Can I DJ for it? I'll have the
DJ?
walk up. I'll have the walk up song
Oh,
for you
okay.
guys.
Some house
we can do
music
that.
going.
Some house music.
I'll commentate. I'll do the play-by-play for it. It'll
Yes.
be great.
Let's go.
Yes.
We'll have a good time.
Let's do it.
All right, we are setting this up. We'll get it go. We're gonna wait till it's a little warmer, so
Mhm.
nobody.
Yep.
So the
50
chance.
degrees today.
Yeah, it is. It's not bad.
Today
but
would be a fine day.
Yeah.
It would be. It'd
Good
be
track
okay.
day.
Good track day. That's right.
Mhm.
Not that I would know, but it's fine.
But Anna can't do it today because she's on the call.
I would say
She's
Anna's
on Nebraska women's basketball.
Anna's a little
tonight.
busy today. You
Yes.
got Nebraska Purdue tonight.
I sure do.
All right, so give us the scoop.
Okay, well, Purdue, 6-game losing streak. It's been a tough stretch for them, but
Bad road team.
but they've also played their 7 last opponents, including Nebraska, will have been top net 30 opponents.
Sounds like another men's team that we talk about that struggle on the road. But
So yes, they have the same sort of issues. They do struggle on the road, and their coach told us last night in our conference call with her, Coach Reynolds, just like, I wish I could bottle up what we do at home and bring it on the road. They're literally switching up their entire routine coming to Lincoln. They left earlier. They started eating at different times. They did different meetings. Like, they're very superstitious right now of their road routine because they don't know why it's not working.
what if all of a sudden they start winning on the road, but they changed their eating time to like the senior citizen window, and so everybody starts eating at 4
If it works,
and
though.
they have to stick with it.
Whatever works.
So yeah,
they're like starving midway through the second quarter because they eat at 4:30.
Got to grab those Uncrustables, like
I
the
don't know.
Ravens. Just grab a bunch of Uncrustables.
but yeah, and then Nebraska not the same boat necessarily. They're in a lot better position than Purdue in the Big Ten standings and where they stand for March. But Nebraska's also off a losing streak with 2 games between Penn State and then Iowa. Of course, Iowa, you can kind of scratch that one off, but they still had a ton of fight. Amy Williams talked to us just about how much she's enjoyed this team and how they fight through adversity. They've had some losses that they wish they could have back, but I don't think any of their losses have necessarily hurt their chances. I think yesterday I saw them predicted at a number 8 seed in March Madness. So if they basically don't have any more bad losses and continue to win some games, maybe a surprising one, they'll probably be in the best position they can around an 8 seed, maybe even get up to that 7 if they have a win that surprises people. But other than that, I think Nebraska women's basketball is in a great spot right now. Alexis Markowski's been going off. She's a double machine. Still got Jazz Shelley, got the freshman Natalie Potts too. So they have a ton of talent. Purdue does as well. It's going to be a good matchup. Like, don't count out Purdue because they've lost 6 in a row.
So, because we call Keisei Tominaga the Japanese Steph Curry, is there a nickname for Jazz Shelley, like the Aussie something?
Not that I know of, but there should be. So there's 2 Aussies playing each other. There's Abby Ellis for Purdue and then a Jazz Shelley. And they have like a little Aussie rivalry.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to see that play out tonight.
There we go. So where can people hear you on the call if they want to tune in?
Yeah, so Nebraska Public Media, you can tune in on the app or also on YouTube TV if you have that, or cable, and then also the Big Ten Network Plus. It'll be streaming on there.
There you go. Make sure you check out Anna Bellinghausen for Nebraska and Purdue tonight. That's a 7 p.m. tip?
It is.
7 p.m. tip. There you go. Nebraska Public Media, Big Ten Plus. I'm a Nebraska Public Media guy. I like the little app on my phone. Got to check it out.
It's clutch.
Good stuff there. Let's change gears. We got a couple minutes here. Creighton, a little bit of a long week for them in terms of off week before they play on Friday. Good. You think the little time off is good for them, especially the way those starters were getting some minutes piling up on them?
Yeah, I think Baylor Shireman will really enjoy this rest. I mean, he's played.
You think he just slept the entire week?
I think he's played all but 2 minutes of the past 3 games. It's been crazy. And Ryan Kalkbrenner, I'm sure, will appreciate it too. That guy's been put in a lot of tough positions, and he's had a motor, I think, this season, which has really impressed me with his conditioning. But yeah, I think it's a huge time for a break and a reset for Creighton. They've obviously been doing great in their past 3 wins there. But also you look at Butler, you have Providence, Xavier. Like, none of these teams are necessarily easy because, as we know, the Big East is never an easy conference. But I think it'll be a good break, and you can kind of reflect back on how poorly that first half went for Creighton, and I think they can address some things in the film room and say, okay, here's what we can't do, because you can't have a start like that if you want to continue on in Big East play in a positive way. And obviously it's huge in March to play a full 40 minutes. So I think the break will help.
Yeah, they've got their last home game here, Butler, before going on a stretch where they play 3 out of 4 on the road. Manageable games in the next 5, including Friday's game. And then they kind of hit that gauntlet to end the season. UConn at St. John's, Seton Hall, Marquette, then at Villanova. Although at Villanova, I'm kind of wondering what their situation looks like by the end of the year.
Yeah, that one's an interesting one. I mean, you watched the game last night and you're kind of scratching your head at that Marquette Villanova game, but
doesn't matter. Villanova plays like the #1 team in the country against Creighton.
Well,
every single time.
Yeah, there's just this weird rivalry every time. You just never know.
I do think Kyle Neptune might be in a little bit of trouble over there at Villanova, but we will see. That's what's on tap for the Creighton Blue Jays. Coming up next, though, what's on tap for us?
Trivia.
A little bit of trivia. We'll see if Anna can finally
take down Ravi.
Beat me in trivia. I got to practice. I got a big trivia day on Friday.
Hey, I like Anna taking L's. It's
or Saturday.
I'm sensing something in the future.
No.
Uh-oh. We'll see what happens. Coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up the show here on a Wednesday on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. I'm Ravi, Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with us. Anna Bellinghausen hanging out with us till the end of the show because we got to play a little trivia.
Do it.
Which means I got to go.
Thanks for welcoming us back. And
now
it's time for you to leave. Welcoming, that word was hard to say. AB, you ready to go here?
I am, I think.
So I told Ravi I tried to scale these questions to like easy to hard.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe like the creative juices can get flowing in your brain and, you know, once things kind of get situated. Ravi, close the double doors. You're a big fat cheater. Man.
There he goes.
Such a depressing moment that was as he slowly shut the double doors at the restaurant.
Shame.
Okay, Shane, you got music, right?
Ooh.
He's always ready.
He's
on the
DJ.
button. Anna?
Okay, I'm ready.
How you feeling today?
I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like you were nice to me today. I don't know why, but
all right. Question number 1. What Major League Baseball player had his home run overturned because of too much pine tar on his bat? Was it Ellie De La Cruz, Gary Sheffield, or George Brett?
It was George Brett.
Had to throw her a bone today, guys. All right, question number 2. What is the farthest a number 15 seed has ever advanced? Or I'm sorry, who is the farthest 15 seed has ever advanced in the NCAA tournament? Was it St. Peter's, Norfolk State,
Yeah.
see, Norfolk, Nebraska, got me mixed up, or Oral Roberts?
I'm gonna say Oral Roberts.
And
I think they were 15.
Question number 3. What team has played in 4 Super Bowls but never held a lead? Is it the Bills, the Vikings, or the Bengals?
Okay, I know the Vikings have never won one. I don't know if they've been to 4 though. Bills or Bengals are the other ones?
Bills and Bengals are the other 2.
Oh gosh. I'm gonna go Vikings because that's my team.
And they have been the 4.
I love how you.
Oh, they have.
She talked herself out of it, and
but I was like,
settled with the Vikings.
Yeah, you always gotta go with your heart.
She's like, it can't be the Vikings, but I'm gonna go with the Vikings.
I didn't know they went to 4. Good for them.
How many total? Don't get them yet, Shane. I mean, come on, false start.
Throw the
That's what
flag.
Anna's
Throw
gonna
the
be
flag.
doing whenever we race.
Whoa.
She needs the extra heads up. All right, tiebreaker question. All right, Shane, you can walk there because by the time you get there, it'll be time.
Yeah, I'm slow.
How
slow
many
rolling.
total points did that 15 seed score in March Madness that year?
Total every game?
Every game, total points.
Holy crap. Okay.
It's closest to.
So I know they went to the Sweet 16. So that would be round of 64, 32. So let's say 177.
Thank you. Bring him in. Bring in the champ.
Let's go.
Hey, Anna's been talking smack.
I am. Yeah, I'm confident today. And I usually don't say that about this trivia stuff.
No, you don't.
No.
She's feeling good. Ravi, Lulla, everybody. A lot of people here today at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill for this trivia matchup.
There actually are kind of a lot of people. There's like a lot of people out there. They're getting the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill ready to go. You're feeling good though?
I think I'm feeling good. Yeah.
Okay. Well, see, when you don't feel good, you've done pretty well. So maybe you're a little overconfident this time. I don't know.
Maybe.
Anna, overconfident about something?
Maybe. I don't know.
News to me.
Let's do it. Let's see what's,
All right,
let's see
question
what's
number
happening.
1. What Major League Baseball player had his home run overturned because of too much pine tar on his bat?
George Brett.
Question number 2. Who is the farthest number 15 seed to advance in the NCAA tournament?
Ooh, okay. Do we have an Elite 8? I know we have a couple Sweet 16s in FGCU and St. Peter's. Do we have an Elite 8? I think St. Peter's made the Elite 8. I'm going to go... Ooh,
Remember, you have a Hail Mary for these last 2 questions. You do get that. I don't think you've used it in a while, so I just want to remind you.
Yeah, it's a good reminder. I'm trying to know if I want to use it now or later. Yeah, give me the Hail Mary here.
Is it St. Peter's, Norfolk State, or Oral Roberts?
I'm going to go St. Peter's.
And question number 3. What team has played in 4 Super Bowls but never held a lead?
Never held a lead. Ooh, that's an interesting one. So I know the Bills have lost 4 Super Bowls. I don't know if anybody else has lost 4 Super Bowls and not won. So obviously, if you won, you held the lead. So
it's a great analysis. You score more points than the other team, then you win.
I'm just thinking through
Just
this logically here.
Let me just show you what Ravi just did there. Whenever Anna called him out, his shoulders went up, his head went down, and he kind of looked like the Kevin James man.
Like, come on.
I'm gonna go. Ooh, did the Vikings lose 4 Super Bowls? I'm gonna.
Should have saved the Hail Mary.
I know, that's why I didn't want to use it. I'm gonna go Vikings.
And the tiebreaker question: how many total points did that 15 seed score in March Madness that year?
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna say St. Peter's was a defensive team. I'm over 3 games. I'm gonna say 187.
Thank you, Ravi. All right, Shane, let's go through the answers, huh?
I'm a little nervous. I don't think I did well that time. I don't feel good. I don't feel good.
All right, guys. Question number 1. What Major League Baseball player had his home run overturned because of too much pine tar on his bat? Was it Ellie De La Cruz, Gary Sheffield, or George Brett? You both said Brett. You both are correct. Had to give Anna a nice little laugh.
That was too easy. I'm a Royals fan.
She was smiling.
Yeah.
You know,
I was like, I knew you were
going
to be nice to me today.
I could see him just sprinting out of the dugout at the umpire. Yeah.
Can you tell me what team they were playing?
Because
that almost was the question, but I thought, man, if I'm going to scale these from easy to hard, that would probably be a 2.
That'd be a hard one.
I think that's a
Was
Yankees?
it the A's?
It was the Yankees.
That's the Yankees.
Yeah, but you went with the dugout with no bar. That was old Yankee Stadium.
Yep.
Old.
Yeah, I think Yankees.
So, okay, question number 2. Both are 1 for 1.
Mm-hmm.
Who was the number 15 seed that advanced the furthest in the NCAA tournament? Was it St. Peter's, Norfolk State, or Oral Roberts? Anna, you said Oral Roberts. Ravi, you said St. Peter's. The answer is St. Peter's.
Dang it. You're throwing me a bone there because you know I like the Summit League.
Mm-hmm.
But it was reversed.
I mixed in an Anna Bellinghausen touch there.
Yeah.
Oral Roberts, I believe, went to the Sweet 16.
I think
but they might have been a different seed.
No, they were 15.
They were?
They beat Ohio State in the first round.
Oh, so then Peters went to Elite
St. Peter's
Eight.
went to the Elite Eight.
Yep.
And
couldn't
Norfolk
remember.
State beat Mizzou, and I still remember that win to this day.
Yeah, and I don't Norfolk State just went to the 32.
Yep, round of 32.
Yep.
Kim English, Providence. Yep, I'm trying to make connections all around.
I see what you're doing.
And question number 3, Ravi up 2-1. What team has played in 4 Super Bowls but never held a lead? Was it the Bills, the Vikings, or the Bengals? Anna said it couldn't be the Vikings and then settled with the Vikings. Ravi started with the Bills and then said out of nowhere, the Vikings have been to 4 Super Bowls.
I don't know where you pulled that out.
And just grabbed the Vikings and said, I'm going to choose the Vikings here too. So either way, it's either we go to the tiebreaker or Ravi takes us home. The answer for the team that has played in 4 Super Bowls and never held a lead is the Minnesota Vikings.
Let's go. Skull.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, how'd you pull that out of your brain?
That went absolutely nowhere and then somewhere.
So I was thinking about the Bills Super Bowls because I was trying to figure out if they ever held a lead. And then I remembered that one of them was super close where Norwood misses the field goal. And I was like, I bet they had the lead at some point in that one. And then I remembered the Fran Tarkenton era Vikings. And I was like, okay, they haven't been recently, but I was like, I'm almost positive I remember Fran Tarkenton having lost 4 Super Bowls. And that was the only other team I could think of that had lost 4 Super Bowls and not won one. And so I went with Vikings.
Ravi Lulla, the trivia master,
Was
takes this one home 2-1. What's up, Shane?
Was Cincinnati in 4 Super Bowls?
They were in 3.
I'll say I don't think they've lost 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the reason I went with the Bengals because there's only I think there's actually 12 or 14 teams that haven't won a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
But there's only
a great number.
Couple that have been to multiple.
Right. And so I was in between because then you also have to think based on the teams that I chose how long they've been around.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't just throw the Jaguars in because they've only been around for 20 years.
Think of old teams.
And have been to a Super Bowl. And then, you have the Texans and things like that. And it's just you got to go deep. And so the only teams that were available were the Browns, the Bengals, the Bills, and the Vikings. Well, if I can't choose the Browns because I think they've only been to 2.
Yeah, I think so. They haven't. They haven't been.
And so I wanted to throw the Bengals in too because I'm like, well, they lost recently.
Yep.
And so maybe that could be on the brain. So I try to trick
that was
you a
on
little
my brain,
bit. But notice how I went with the Royals, a Summit League team.
Yeah, you were just
and
messing
Anna's
with me.
NFL team in these
You're messing
3
with me the whole time.
trivia answers.
He was trying to help you out. He was trying to throw
the,
you.
But
not
I
the
messed-
Oral Roberts
I messed
question.
her- I messed her up in question number 2, which ultimately cost her.
It did.
Yeah, it did.
It did.
So Ravi goes 3 for 3 out of nowhere, takes this one home 3-2. The tiebreaker question wouldn't have mattered. How many total points did that 15 seed score in March Madness that year? Ravi said 187. Anna said 177. You both are way off.
Is it 200?
271.
Holy crap.
Oh, wow.
Well, you got to remember they played 4 games.
Yeah.
You guys were thinking
I was calculating. Yeah, you did it wrong. You did it wrong. You said 3 games. Yeah.
So they scored 60 points that you didn't account for.
They did. Yep. But I still would have won. I was closer.
You're right. You're right.
Closer. I will
Anna
take
played it as a Sweet 16.
Yep.
So technically, she played it right.
Tell me how many points Oral Roberts scored.
And I
would have won
mathed
this.
And I mathed wrong. That's right. That's Hurrdat Sports Radio for today. We will be back tomorrow on a Thursday. We'll talk to you then.